Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
Welcome to the Triumphs of Transformation Global Resilience broadcast. We are so excited that today we have the bestseller book of the Los Angeles Tribune, critically acclaimed bestseller, launching here at the Los Angeles Tribune Global Broadcast. Alicia, how excited are you that we are having this global resilience broadcast that's so needed around the globe, and the book Triumphs of Transformation launching?
We are delighted. Congratulations to Dr. Taryn and all of the co-authors that have contributed to Triumphs of Transformation, which came out yesterday on November 11th. Triumphs of Transformation is really about exploring themes of resilience. And you're going to hear from so many of the authors today during today's broadcast. It is really our honor and our pleasure to introduce Dr. Taryn Marie Stejskal, who is recognized by USA Today as the #1 international expert on resilience, mental health, and well-being, and she is founder of the Resilience Leadership Institute. Dr. Taryn's mission is to positively impact the lives of 1 billion people by enhancing hope along with overall health and wellness through practices of resilience. Her book entitled The 5 Practices of Highly Resilient People, Why Some Flourish When Others Fold, is the #1 Wall Street Journal bestseller and was endorsed by Ariana Huffington, Daniel Pink, and Kathy Ireland. And today's conversation is really building towards Dr. Taryn's mission to positively impact the lives of 1 billion people by enhancing hope. And that is the mission of both Dr. Taryn and the co-authors of Triumphs of Transformation, inspiring stories of resilience and life change. So it is our honor to introduce Dr. Taryn. There's so much more that I could say about Dr. Taryn, but we'd love to invite her on to further introduce herself, to share more about her important work in the space of resilience and working with individuals that have experienced trauma, and really helping people walk out fully confident in both their personal lives and their professional lives. So Dr. Taryn, welcome, and appreciate you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here with both of you, Alicia and Ava, with the LA Tribune team, and of course, with our community of 30 authors who all contributed to our book that we are launching this week, entitled Triumphs of Transformation, Inspiring Stories of Resilience and Life Change. And let me just tell you, if I could have written this book just for myself, I would have, because what I need right now are a series of stories that bring hope, encouragement, positivity. I don't know about you, but every time I'm going through a difficult moment, it's like I call up a story, something else that I've seen, and I think to myself, if that person or those people could make it through that moment, certainly I can get through whatever this moment of challenge, change, or complexity I'm facing. And so this book is not just for me, it's a book for all of us. It's a book for all of us as we walk through these incredibly ambiguous, uncertain, and disruptive times. Now, here in the US, obviously, this is a global broadcast. We just had our elections. Now, we're not going to talk about politics today. We're going to leave that to some of the political experts. But what I will say is we know that after any election, There's a series of people that feel excited and inspired about what's to come. And there's a number of people that are deeply concerned and crestfallen about the results. And so this book is not just meant to uplift and encourage. This is a book to remind us that as humans, we are more deeply connected than we care to remember on a regular basis. Our stories of facing challenge, although they are deeply unique to each one of us, are really more universal. We've all faced rejection. We've all faced loss. We've all faced pain and disappointment. And I think when we can get to the core of our resilient stories and to recognize that we're more alike than we are different, that our stories and experience is more universal than it is unique, it reminds us that we're all deeply connected. So this is a book that is for all of us, and it is for our time. It is for this moment in time to remind us not only that we will get through whatever we're going through, that it's okay to not be okay, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that the possibility for the positive imagined future still exists. And so I'm just so happy to bring forward so many of our authors today to be part of this conversation about resilience. We have gathered together some of the most incredible people who are experts in their field, who are thought leaders, who are entrepreneurs, CEOs, business leaders. We even have a couple people that are celebrities and household names. And you know what? The thing that we all have in common, even if you're an ordinary person like me, is that we all have an extraordinary story of resilience to share. So I'm delighted to be here with all of you. And we're actually going to bring on our first panel of incredible women, where we're going to be talking about leadership, resilience, and how it is in our lives that we go about reinventing ourselves and break new ground.
So
Dr.
wonderful.
Taryn, thank you so much for that introduction. As you host the rest of the show, we just want to let our audience know that Dr. Taryn is going to be the amazing host of this show and this broadcast, and know that she has brought in like some powerful, influential people who admittedly vulnerably has really gone through challenges. So challenges isn't just for ordinary people, it's also for like even the most accomplished people. And you're going to see that today. Dr. Taryn is going to highlight that. So Dr. Taryn, without further ado, Alicia, do you have any words before we come off the screen and hand it over to Dr. Taryn?
We just want to say again, congratulations on the launch of Triumphs of Transformation. Triumphs of Transformation is recognized as a Los Angeles Tribune critically acclaimed bestseller for its relevance and its cultural impact around conversations on resilience, how it is so well written and how it's really bringing really important conversations, mindsets, and also personal stories of overcoming to the forefront. And you all are going to hear from so many of these authors today that were a part of Triumphs of Transformation. And so we ask you all to just engage, participate, comment, let us know where you're joining in from, and share this remarkable conversation that's going to happen today. So with that said, Dr. Taryn, we'll hand it over to you to introduce the guests.
Amazing. Oh, and I have a very esteemed colleague here. She apparently is an expert in resilience. This is Bluebell, who has just jumped on camera with us. But let me go ahead and introduce our incredible next panel of women. So I have joining us Jen Bowden, who is a dear friend and has expanded the aperture in my mind of what I believe is possible. She's a fashion designer. She's a best-selling author. She's a skier that has been nationally ranked and was considered for the Olympics. And when she told me all of the things that she's done, a macroeconomics expert, I thought either this woman is just putting me on, or I get to really rethink about what's possible for me in my life. And I'm so happy to share with you that it's the latter. She is truly a Renaissance woman. Following Jen Bowden, I have Dr. Adrienne Denise. Dr. Adrienne Denise is the founder of Skin Science. She is all about creating clean beauty and being able to put products on our face that are not only good for our skin, but good for our bodies. And last but not least, I have Stephanie de Sarachaga de Bilbao, who is an incredible woman. I can't wait for you to read each one of their chapters, who is really leading the charge in thinking about how we bring people together and create connection and community and conversation and restoration globally across many nations. So I'd like to welcome all of you, Jen, Dr. Adrienne, and Stephanie. Beautiful. So wonderful to see you here. Hello. Hello. Stephanie, let me go ahead and start with you. And I'll just remind both you and Dr. Adrienne that you are muted. So just go ahead and unmute yourself now that you're in the broadcast. Stephanie, you've been on a journey yourself, personally, professionally. Talk to me about what this journey has been like for you and how you've sort of grown in your own resilience and perspectives over the course of the time of writing your story and publishing this book together.
Wow. So, so much has changed, since being able to really dig deep and share my story and hopefully give people tools so that they can find their own inner resilience and warrior leader inside themselves. For much of my life, I was not able to really share my story because it is not only my story, it is the story of millions of other people who were affected and their history was suppressed. And so to be able to do that now with such wonderful co-authors is simply life-changing, and just shifting the energy of really putting it down and having incredible response. I had no idea it would have such an incredible response. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's the short term of how things have changed.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful answer. And I think one of the things for me that's so striking about your chapter, where you actually talk about initially sort of walking away from this legacy that you had through your family in Spain. And your chapter really takes us on a journey where there's a beautiful arc that moves from walking away from your legacy to embracing it. And I think that is such an incredibly powerful universal message for all of us, because how often have each one of us had something in our lives that we think, you know what, I need to leave that behind. I need to create a new story for myself, only to find that that legacy follows us until we're able to embrace it and ultimately learn the lessons that we're meant to.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately for me, it was the legacy was not something that I could really move forward in the beginning because my mother had passed when I was 11, and my grandparents were both dead by the time I was a teenager, and I was cut off from so many of the family and things, and I was unfortunately in a very complicated home situation because my father was left a widow and he was dealing with his own demons. And so I made the choice that my legacy was not going to be a victim. And that's just a personal sovereignty choice that didn't really have to do anything to do with my background, besides the fact that my background instilled in me to never give up and to always just try to find the next right, best thing to do. And for me, that was understanding that money is actually a wonderful force in the world, that it is not evil, that it can give you personal sovereignty. And so I got my first job as a teenager, and I decided to take care of myself, put myself through college, everything. And in doing that, I tried, as you were saying, to not deal with the other larger legacy that I was born into. Many people are born into circumstances they can't control. And for me, I just kept thinking somebody else can do it better. There's somebody else that can move this legacy better than me. Like, God is
I'm laughing because haven't we all said that? Haven't we all said, certainly there must be someone who can do this better? And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, it's me.
Oh, no. Yeah. Like, no, this cannot be just me. There's somebody. And I went through years of that. I took my personal sovereignty and created strong businesses, lost and found businesses, just really worked on me personally, because I did know in the back somewhere, like the tap on the shoulder that everyone can get, that there was more to it. And that I was going to need to embrace my legacy, find a way into embracing a complex situation, just the way that I had gotten myself out of a very bad domestic situation. And for me, it was just starting to listen to the stories of other people, of the people that weren't just my family, that had been hunted and persecuted. And that's really what I drew strength on, is I was like, they need to be heard. These people need to be made whole. And so I'm now going to use those skills and things that I built over the years to try to help that in some way. And just like anyone else who's tried a big thing out of their comfort zone, it didn't work right away. I am not going to say that I reached out to people and they were super excited to hear from me in the beginning. They were surprised that I was alive, but then they were like, what do we do? How are we going to reconcile all of this together? And I realized that, you know, my, as you would call it, in sort of, I guess, book storyline almost, and that's how life is, my hero's journey was not just about me. It needed to be about all of them and all of us together moving forward and bringing more light into the world. And so that's what I've really, really focused on. And that's why this book was so important. When you asked me to consider a chapter, I was really, really excited to finally do that.
That's amazing. And, you know, I love the parallels that you shared, that part of your healing and sort of deeper understanding of who you are and the culture that you come from, the ancestors, the people, really started with listening to the stories of other people as a way to ground yourself into your own story, but also to expand the aperture of your understanding of other people's experience. Isn't that an incredible sort of parallel and synergy to also what we're doing with our book, Triumphs of Transformation? So Dr. Adrienne, I'm going to come over to you. You are a woman like Stephanie that I deeply admire. In fact, I have one of your products right here. I am always getting compliments on my skin. People say, you look so good for 75, Taryn. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not saying 75, but
25 minutes.
You know, you are a woman. You talk about in your chapter, you grew up in communist Hungary. And
Yeah.
I just want to position this for people right now, because like Stephanie, the arc and the journey that you've been on is just so powerful and beautiful to me. And it is such a testament to the fact that we are not defined by where we start in life. We are defined by the trajectory and the growth and the journey that we are all currently on. And so for you, it started in communist Hungary. Your job was to go to the store on the days that bread was available and wait in line and to bring the bread back for your family. And that made you feel useful. It made you feel valuable. It made you feel like you were contributing. And you began by making soap with your grandmother and began to learn about skincare in this way. So I don't want to spoil it. I want you to tell us, Dr. Adrienne, today you have your own skincare line. You are a leading purveyor and expert on skincare on QVC. Tell us a little bit about your story and what's happened since you stood in line to get bread for your family, and where are you today?
Wow, really quite, what a wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much for letting me present my life story here. So I started out in communist Hungary, as you know, and it was a very highly aggressive environment, as you can imagine. You were not allowed to do anything. As a child, it was actually good to grow up there because it was the country was very much focused on academia. School was taken very, very seriously. I learned so much more in high school in Hungary than I learned in college in the United States, as it happens. But anyway, so I came to this country. I was 23 years old and I had exactly $40 in my pocket. And I thought, oh, that's a lot of money. I'll be fine here. I arrived at the airport and it turned out that, in fact, the cab ride was exceeding $40. So I said, well, that's a bit of a problem. Um, I had all sorts of odd jobs for a while until I received a scholarship, a full scholarship to Cornell Medical College, and that was a real breakthrough in my life. After I got my acceptance letter from school, I felt that yes, things are going to go right. I was always very studious. My grades were always basically perfect. I think the worst grade I ever got was a 97 out of 100. So I was a very good student.
You've been a high
So
achiever
I,
since the very beginning.
I just was. There was really no choice. I felt that coming from such a disadvantaged situation as from an oppressed communist country, the only way for me to excel was through studies, through academia, through physics and medicine and mathematics and everything, languages. So I was really fascinated. And to this day, I absolutely love to study. I spent at least maybe 4 or 5 hours each and every day listening to podcasts in medicine. I mean, serious medical lectures for doctors. So it's this passion will never subside. Anyway, so I finished medical school, started a medical practice. It was anti-aging medicine. I figured that there must be somebody who's interested. I was on the Upper East Side between Fifth and Madison, and I figured that, well, there must be some people who are interested in not getting older in this neighborhood. So anyway, I started there and developed a skincare line very early on because whenever I treated a patient, I did hormone replacement for the most part and functional medicine. Whenever I had an interview with a patient, the last question of the patient was, well, and Dr. Dennis, what do I do for my skin? So I kind of felt pressured and obligated to come up with something really meaningful for your skin. So I started a skincare line. And then in a few months, after a few months, it was very successful actually. After a few months' time, QVC knocked on my door. They asked if I would come on air. I said, no way, I cannot possibly be on television. I would just die in fear probably, so I couldn't handle it. But then they kept coming back, and I said, all right, it would be fine, just come, let's see what happens. And what happened was that I sold out. And then I sold out again and again and again. It became an incredible success. I became one of their highest performers ever. I've been on QVC now 22 years at this point, and patients love it. They just love it. They find my skincare so helpful, so meaningful for their skin. Now the key to my skincare is clean beauty. That's number one. Clean, clean, clean. That's incredibly important to me. But the key to my skincare is that I give very high percentages of the active ingredients, really much higher than most of everyone else, even very expensive luxury skincare lines. I put more active ingredients than anybody else. It drives my prices high, but I don't really care because I can hand you a jar and you will never live without that jar ever again. You will just have to have it because it's that good. It's very visibly meaningful to your skin almost within a few days' time. So that's really the basis of my success, that I created a product line that is so important, so powerful, in terms of active ingredients and the percentage of the active ingredients that you just don't want to live without it once you try it. So
Dr. Adrian, I'm
it
going
was a
to jump
wonderful.
in, if
Yes,
that's
sorry.
okay, on that note, because I am such an admirer of the skincare that you've created. And
Thank you
we
very
have
much.
a couple of minutes to just transition over to Jen Bowden, who's joined us. And
Yes.
one of the reasons that I wanted to bring the three of you together is that you are all creators. You're all way showers. You're all inventors and entrepreneurs who have reinvented yourselves, invented products, invented new ways of being and living in the world. And so, Jen, part of my introduction for you was to talk about you as a Renaissance woman, a woman who in your chapter, you talk about growing up in a profoundly abusive household that would have perhaps stunted the growth of so many, kept people from reaching out into the world and trying something new. And yet you became a nationally ranked competitive, internationally ranked competitive skier, a fashion designer, a best-selling author, a macroeconomist, and so many more accomplishments. Jen, you are so wonderful at being a mentor and bestowing upon young women in particular, but women and men, a bit of knowledge, a bit of guidance about how they can look at the world. So, Jen, for those that are listening today, what would your advice be for people maybe that have gone through something difficult but aspire to be so much more than they are today? What would you share with our audience?
Firstly, I would say believe in yourself no matter what anybody else says, no matter what happens in your family. Yes, I was for 10 years severely abused every day, and so were my brothers. And I held strong, and I knew that I didn't deserve it. And I knew that I could do big things if I wanted to. Every day I was told how stupid I was, that I would never do anything. And as my head was banged against the wall, and I knew deep inside, and I stuck to my guns, that I can do whatever I want to do. This is just temporary. And I think really sticking to my guns and believing in myself, believing that I would get through this is half the battle. I think the other part of the battle, it's really important, is besides trusting in yourself, you have to find the right people, surround yourself with the good people, with people that do believe in you. They're not always easy to find, but don't listen to the naysayers. They will tell you everything you can't do. And I would always say, just because in your brain, in your head, say to yourself, just because you can't do it doesn't mean I can't do it. So instead of believing them, I always tried to let them know that, how do you know I won't be able to do it? How do you know I won't be able to reach my goals? Maybe you're putting your expectations on me. Just because you can't reach your goals doesn't mean I can't reach my goals. So I think that's one really important milestone.
I think that's an incredible place for us to transition to our next panel. And Jen, I love that you shared with us to always bet on ourselves and to never throw in the towel, and that someone else's opinion of us does not need to become our reality. Jen, Dr. Adrian, Stephanie, I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. And it has been so lovely to learn from you, to have you here on this broadcast. And next up, we're going to bring up three more of our authors. We have Quentin Aaron, who is the star of a film you may have seen called The Blind Side. We have Jim Beebe, who has learned the secrets to helping young adults as athletes be able to build strength so they have the opportunity to go on and achieve scholarships and to be able to play at a collegiate level by building their strength. And we have Maurice Williams, who is an expert on how to build programs for youth, not only around sport, especially his love of basketball, which he talks about in the book, but also around purpose. And one of the things that is so striking for me about Maurice is how he doesn't just coach youth and young adults to become a better athlete. He coaches them to also be better leaders and better people, not only on the court, but off the court. So, Quentin, I would love to start with you. Your story has always been so fascinating to me, so deeply special. We've been friends for a number of years now.
Yes.
And one of the things that has been so powerful for me is we all saw the film The Blind Side. We saw Sandra Bullock collect her Academy Award. So you've been in an Oscar-winning film. And yet your life really sort of paralleled behind the scenes in many ways the person that you profiled. And your own biological mother was very powerful for you in terms of allowing you to pursue your dreams of acting and to see something more for you that you could become perhaps before you even saw it for yourself and it became a reality. Could you tell us a little bit about your story, sort of the behind the scenes that people may not know about you?
I was quite the character growing up. Before I knew I wanted to be an actor, I think I just drove my mom crazy enough till she figured it out for me and signed me up for drama because I had this vivid imagination from a young kid growing up being bullied in school. I would come home and my escape would be film, like TV. I would find projects that I like cartoons or movies, and I would pretend to be the characters that I liked in those things. So I would walk around the house with my own little makeshift costumes that I put together. And I was so in character that, I wouldn't even respond to mom when she called me because she wasn't calling me by the name of the character that I was portraying at the time. So I tend to get shoes thrown at me and a lot. You don't ignore mama, especially at 4 or 5 years old. And my mom wasn't, Puerto Rican, but she can definitely sling a chancleta like with the best of them. They call it like throwing sandals, how the Spanish women throw sandals. Yeah, my mom ricocheted one off the wall one time and caught me in the back of the head. I was around the corner already. I don't even know how she did it. But yeah.
There's something about becoming a parent where we just, we have like a better arm,
Exactly.
It sort of
Yeah.
happens in pregnancy, I think. And, Quentin, one of the things that I love about what you just shared with us is how early on there were some real clues to your
Yeah.
passion and your talents and who you might become. And I just want to double click on that before we transition over to Jim, because I think one of the things that is so powerful about the just nugget of your story that you shared today is we all in our hearts, and in our beings, I think there's things that we naturally gravitate toward.
Hmm.
And to not ignore those things, to not ignore those passions, to not think they're silly, but in fact, to follow them and to amplify them and to have people around us that allow us to continue to pursue our dreams. So, Jim, I want to go
Absolutely.
to you. Thank you, Quentin. You're so
Thank
great.
you.
And Jim, I have long admired what you are doing with athletes since you and I met. You have an organization called Athlete Builder. Obviously, it's an incredible feat to receive a scholarship from a university to get to continue to play sports. And your organization is all about helping athletes build strength and to be able to compete at a higher level. You're really building physical and mental resilience. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, Dr. T. And thanks for having me on. The thing about building people up or finding strength, like you've heard it from all the guests so far, there's usually something inside that holds them back. There's a fear, there's a part where they're not confident enough. And then when you learn to lift weights, there's conflict. There's you against the bar. There's you against no. There's you against fear. So you start to build them up that way. Then they have a small competition and they win that. And it's that incrementally adding more pressure and change. And then the kid or the adult responds. So we have Special Olympics kids, just regular kids like you and me. And then we have high level athletes that train. And in each instance, it's finding that way and that method to get them to just push a little bit further. And after a while, that gets woven into their identity, that they're always going to look for the next little challenge, to do everything you do plus two. And with that comes the mindset. They want to excel in school. They want to excel and handle the challenges with their relationships. They don't know it now, but when they're older, they'll see conflict in the workplace or with their spouse, and they're going to be about, hey, this is hard, but it's okay. I can handle it. I handled it before. And the more resilient you build those people, the more times they flex that muscle, the bigger it gets, and the more opportunities they have because they've taken those risks and they've made those challenges into big wins.
I love that. I love that piece that you shared about being able to incrementally build our resilience and confidence over time. So often we think that we're meant to be born a certain way, that we're meant to already have it within us. And I think your guidance is so valuable to demonstrate that this isn't something that happens all at once. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's a way that through Athlete Builder, and also, of course, for ourselves, we can build our resilience and confidence over time. And it doesn't have to be something that already exists. All right, Maurice, I'm going to head over to you. You have founded a program called Ball with Purpose.
Yes.
And you are working with youth not only on their basketball skills, but also on their leadership and character. Tell us about this program and about how you've really taken your first love of basketball and allowed it to uplift and encourage and develop an entire community.
Sure. Well, dealing with youth, first of all, you have to have this hook, right? Something to bring them into the building, to keep their interest. So basketball is that. Basketball is that hook. Hey, we got courts, we have basketballs, there's a space for you. And one thing about our program is that we accept all, whether you have dribbled the basketball, 1,000 times or 0 times, our program has a space for you. And just that welcoming environment, I think, goes a long way with just making people feel seen, valued, and heard. But once I get them in the door, it's definitely bigger than basketball. It's about character development, how you be leaders on and off the court. And it has been a beautiful experience to see our children grow. Whereas we have our older guys and girls mentoring our younger girls and guys. And we definitely foster that sense of brotherhood and sisterhood and family into our program. And it's just been amazing so far.
I love that. Maurice, can you talk to us about maybe just a story in 1 or 2 minutes about maybe how you saw someone, one of the youth in your program be changed by this experience and being part of Ball with Purpose?
Sure. Great question. Like I said, when students come into the program, they tend to sometimes be a little nervous or shy. And I remember this one individual, I won't say any names, but they were just very timid and didn't know if they could handle the rigor of the program. And we decided to keep on pushing them. You got this. Keep on coming back. Keep on coming back. Keep trying. Because one of our pillars, we have 7 pillars in our program. One of our pillars is to commit to being better than yesterday. If you can show up, you're better than yesterday. If you could put up another shot, you're better than yesterday. And with that committed step to keep showing up, this young man has completely transformed himself. Whereas he's making the shots that he wasn't making before. Whereas he's more outspoken and he was a little bit shy and reserved before. So just that persistence of showing up every day and just being consistent in doing things better than before. I think always gets us to our promised land, and to dig deeper, to keep going, even when you feel like I've had enough or this is too challenging. There's always something on the other side for you.
I love that. That's
Can I
beautiful. Quentin, jump in here. Add on.
I just want to say real quick, if I had Jim and Maurice in my life growing up, I would be in the NBA. I'm just saying, like, in the NBA and NFL, I'll probably be the first to do both. Like, I literally, I got the size of both, 6'8", At 425, I could be an offensive lineman and a center.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
I needed both of y'all in my life, man. But I admire what you guys do for everyone, all of these kids. You know, my life has been helping kids because I've been through so much as a child myself without male role models in my life to kind of influence me along the way. I'm a mama's boy, grew up a mama's boy, and everything I am today, I give credit to her. God rest her soul, because she created me into the man that I am. And I take nothing away from that. I love her for it. But also I've grown to understand and realize the importance that it is for men like you in children's lives, boys and girls. So I just want to say I admire y'all. Much love, much respect. And Taryn, you are awesome for bringing everybody together. Like you were, that's what's up. So
Thank you so much. And you know, it is such a delight. I'll just say through this book, I'm going to hold it up. We haven't held it up yet. Triumphs of Transformation. This book is launching this week. I am so excited. Jim's got his. Maurice is going to grab his. I'm sure Quentin's is within arm's reach. That's all right, Quentin. We got you. We got you, man. We're here for you.
I forgot it in the room. Sorry.
And you know what? I want to just sort of bring together something that I think each of you said in similar ways in parallel, which is, and I think Ava shared this when she commented, we cannot underestimate the importance of mentors in our lives. And what we know is that having just one person who believes in us, a coach, a friend, a family member, a parent, to say, I believe and I see something more in you, that makes all the difference. And what I love about each of the work that you're doing, Quentin, Maurice, Jim, is you are that person to so many people. For every child and young athlete who is part of Athlete Builder and will become part of Athlete Builder, who will read your book, Jim, when it comes out in just a few short weeks and have the template to be able to build strength. Quentin, the borrowed belief that you had from your mother who put you in drama and ultimately led you to become part of an Academy Award-winning film. And Maurice, the way that you're building not only skill in sport, but skill in leadership, and how we find purpose in our lives will endure for every single person the three of you touch for their entire lifetimes to come.
Well said. Thank you.
It has been such a pleasure and honor to have you on the show, and a delight to work with you on our book.
Absolutely. It's a true
Thank
blessing.
you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, as we transition, I want to talk about the women that we have joining us next. We have Georgianne McConnell and Heather Mack. And we're going to be talking about the role of spirituality, self-love, healing, and manifestation as we create resilience. So I want to go ahead and bring up Heather Mack and Georgianne McConnell. You are doing incredible work in the world. You have really beautiful chapters that you've contributed to our book, Triumphs of Transformation. Georgianne, you are a business money coach. You are working with women who are essentially helping others, whether that's therapists or people offering Reiki or sound baths, who are contributing to the healing of others to help them be able to amplify their financial picture and to be able to have a sustainable income to be able to continue to do the work that they're doing. And Heather, you are a practitioner in so many ways through the organization that you've founded called Divine Gift, where you are working directly with clients through many modalities to help them heal trauma, generational or ancestral things that have been passed down through their lineage that they may not have experienced in their lifetime, and to help them be able to see themselves in a different light and to be able to expand and amplify how they're showing up in the world to contribute at their highest level energetically. So Heather, let me go ahead and start with you. You and I met a couple of years back, and I have always seen within you this incredible power to be able to influence the world, to be able to be a beacon of light and hope for everyone whose life you touch. That has not changed. And I want you to talk to us about your work with Divine Gift and how you're showing up in the world today.
Thank you so much, Taryn. I appreciate that warm welcome. I'm already in tears, so thank you.
We're just all going to laugh and cry today. It's going to be all emotions are welcome.
Thank you. And it's just a reflection for you as well. So thank you for being such a sacred mirror in my life. I'm so grateful for that, and illuminating my life and my path in so many ways. You've had such a profound impact on me and all that you touch. So just thank you for what you're doing to make the world a brighter place. We're so grateful and honored to know you. So thank you for this opportunity to share. So I have been on this journey of awakening the past couple of years, and I was gifted the beautiful gift of creating this organization called Divine Gift. And Divine Gift is a reminder that every conscious moment is our divine gift. So every experience, every challenge is our gift. So it's our job to basically see what it is within that experience that is our gift in our lesson, in our teaching. So that's part of what the offering is with the work that I get to do. So I work, with mostly in ceremony and with plant medicine, with earth medicines. And then also we create conscious events here in LA. So we just had our 15th one on Sunday, and we're having them every month. And they're basically creating a ripple effect for bringing conscious community together so that we can support one another. As Dr. Taryn taught me, rising tides lift more boats. And so to share that lesson and that teaching with other people and how we can illuminate and make the world a better place and be the change we want to see in the world. So I love it.
I love that. Heather, you mentioned something that some of our viewers or audience members may not be familiar with. You talked about plant medicine. And I wonder if you could just expand for us on what does it mean when we say plant medicine and doing work through ceremony?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So with plant medicine, we work with a lot of different earth medicines. And one of the medicines I work most commonly with is a medicine called Kambo, and it's from the Amazon. It's put on the skin topically, and it's a cleansing medicine. So it cleanses the body using peptides, and you're basically clearing out things that are energetically stuck. So that's one of the medicines I work with. I work with a couple others that we facilitate ceremonies with as well. So it's basically creating a sacred space, a container with like love and an open heart, and allowing people to move through energy that could be dormant or not, they might not be aware of yet at this part in their journey. So we go through deep layers in uncovering things in the subconscious to see how these things are shaping their current reality. So we do a lot with pattern work. So looking at how patterns could be shaping how everything in their life is run by these patterns that we have, these operating systems. I like to call them like old, outdated, like computer programming systems that we have. And like, sometimes we just need a reboot. And these plant medicines that we work with, we get to basically create awareness around these patterns of our consciousness. So with the ceremony space that we create, we allow these plant medicine allies to help shed light to the parts of us that we might be unaware of. And then we work through it together and how we can create a new life. And the thing I like to say to people is, our life can change in an instant, in this moment right now. If we decide and if we are ready to make change and let go of the things that are no longer serving us, we can actually shift energy very quickly. So
Yeah. I agree. I was sitting at a dinner party.
too.
I won't say too much about this, but someone turned to me and they said, Dr. Taryn, you're a neuropsychologist. How long does it take to create a new pattern? Does it take 2 weeks, 30 days? I said, I don't know, like now? Like we can just decide. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks or 30 days. Like we can just decide in this moment, I am not going to engage, or I am going to engage in something new. And we can start just exactly where we are today. It doesn't have to be a long-term process, as you mentioned, Heather. And I'll just say before we transition over to Georgianne that I have sat in ceremony with Heather. She is a brilliant practitioner, full of love. And one of the things that I wanted to heal was this persistent back pain that I didn't understand. And in fact, after sitting in ceremony with Heather, my back pain is completely gone. Something I've had for 20 years. It was stuck energy. It was emotions that I wasn't dealing with. And through working with Heather, I was able to move that energy and relieve that pain, and it has not returned. So, Georgianne, over to you. I love the work that you're doing because you know what? None of us can do any of the work that you're doing if we can't put food on the table or pay our rent. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like, we need you in our lives to help make this whole thing sustainable. So talk to us about what it means to be like a business money coach. We know what a sports coach is. We had some sports coaches on. What does it mean to coach with money?
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Taryn. And I like Heather. Yes, I've sat on one of her ceremonies as well, and it is magical and life-changing. And I'm delighted to be here with everybody as part of the book. So for me, and thank you for asking that question, Dr. Taryn, those that know me and those that haven't met me yet, I love talking about money, right? I mean, I just love talking about money. And it's really about helping entrepreneurs, usually women, helping them to recognize that they are worthy and deserving of sharing their gifts and receiving gifts in exchange. Money is the form of exchange. Receiving that in exchange so that they can then lead a fulfilling and sustaining life. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they start their business because they're passionate about yoga or about plant medicine or about energy, or they want to be a life coach. That's their passion, but they don't and they know they need to make money, right? But they don't necessarily correlate with how money can truly make their business and their life the best that they can dream of. And so I blend the practical money, balance sheet, profit and loss, pricing, all of that fun stuff, and their spiritual or their business or holistic side of it. I blend them together so that they are able to help the people that they want to help while they're helping themselves and their family, live.
I think one of the things that I have come into contact with, not only as an entrepreneur myself and knowing so many other CEOs and founders, as a woman, and also as it exists for all of us across genders around self-confidence, like that ability to know our value and worth, that's step one. And step two, to tell people what that correlated price tag is, step two. And step three, then to collect that money is so difficult for so many people. So, Georgianne, you're a wealth of knowledge, and this is your area of expertise. But if you could sort of just reach out to everyone in the audience and say, like, here's a place to start. If you're grappling with knowing your value, what would you tell us?
Oh my gosh, thank you for asking that. I'm clapping my hands because I love talking about this. So one of the pieces, and I've been on a lot of podcasts and I've talked with a lot of people. I was a financial advisor for a lot of years, right? So I love helping people with shifting the mindset. And one of the key pieces, and it's a simple thing that I like to share with people, is we quite often, as we're talking about, feel that we're not worthy and that we don't have enough money, that we just don't have enough, right? And so one of the simple things to shift that in your mind is you take $1 or $5 or $10 or $100 bill, whatever you have, and you put that separate in your wallet or in your purse. And several times a day, you take it out, you look at it, and I wish I had a dollar bill. I have my book, but I didn't think to bring a dollar bill. But you take that dollar bill and you look at it and you say, I always have money. I always have money. And your monkey mind will say, yeah, but it's just $1 or $5, right? But what that does is that shifts you so that if you do that, I guarantee for a week, you pull that dollar out, you say to it 3 to 4 or 5 times a day, I always have money. I always have money. And in a week, your monkey mind will no longer doubt you. It will say, yes, I always have money. And so that's just a simple, easy thing to do that we can all do starting now to shift that mindset into money and receiving it, right?
I love that. I think it's a powerful, simple practice that we can all engage in. It's so easy to feel like rather than being in that abundance mindset that we're always in scarcity and there's never enough.
Right.
And so that's something all of us can do to shift our practice. And I think what you've also underscored here, Georgianne, is the importance of language, that we speak our beliefs and our experience into existence through the words that we use.
Absolutely.
And so, Heather, I want to just transition back to you to wrap us up. I know that you also are a practitioner of words and thinking about how what we say out loud becomes our experience. What would you tell our audience about the power and the importance of the language that we use as we wrap up our time together?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's something that you taught me so beautifully years ago in how our words cast spells and our words create our entire reality, and something that has profoundly shaped my new reality that I get to live in, and it's absolute bliss. I cry every day in tears of gratitude and how incredibly joyous my life is. And the reason for that is the words we choose and how we create our entire reality, and how we speak to ourselves literally ripples out to everyone around us. It's a frequency that we create in our reality. So the thing that I like to say that's like very important to me is I trust myself, and constantly creating that trust within myself and in my heart. Because if we trust ourselves, then we can trust everyone around us and everything that's coming into our reality. So that's been a really big game changer for me. So if you can start trusting yourself and loving yourself, of course, these are things that are really beautiful ways to shift your reality into a whole new frequency. So
Nice.
Beautiful, beautiful. Georgianne and Heather, I knew it was going to be perfect to have you two here together. And what you've done is you've taught us about the power of language. You've taught us about valuing ourselves, about self-love, and you've also taught us about trust. Georgianne, you taught us about trusting that there will be enough resources, and Heather, you taught us about trusting ourselves. I am so deeply grateful to have you as our co-authors in our new book, Triumphs of Transformation, Inspiring Stories of Resilience and Life Change. Here it is. Ta-da! This is amazing. As an author, it's just like a metaphysical fact. Like you always have to have the book within 4 feet so you can hold it up, on a virtual campus. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And we're going to go ahead and transition to a brief, just 1 minute or so commercial break. And after that, I'm going to bring up our next guest. Thank you, Heather and Georgianne.
Thank you, Taryn.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
Welcome back. We are delighted to be on our global broadcast here with our colleagues at the Los Angeles Tribune for our Resilience Summit and global book launch of Triumphs of Transformation, Inspiring Stories of Resilience and Life Change. I'm Dr. Taryn Marie Stejskal, and next up, I would love to bring up one of our co-authors, a colleague that I deeply respect and admire, Julie Lancaster. Julie is the founder of Lancaster Leadership. She and her team train leaders in organizations on as many as probably 50 different topics relative to leadership, from succession planning to accountability to communication. And Julie, I'd love to ask you, why is this topic of resilience so deeply important to you?
Hi. Well, I am so delighted to be together, and so it's
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I just jumped right into the question without being welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so great to be here, and what a better reason to convene than to talk about resilience, which we all need like air, right? Some people have said who needs to be resilient? Well, quite frankly, all people. And it's interesting because I have the chance, as we all do, to think through my personal lens as well as through the lens of helping the folks that I coach and train. And when I think about it for me personally, first of all, I come from my own, my family's genes, my own personality, right? And I know that I have a pretty high happiness set point. There are many photos that I'm even in where I'm maniacally smiling, it's like this. So people can have a thought that I haven't experienced challenge. And I think we sometimes do that to each other. And so as I was thinking about what to include in this book with all these incredible authors, I was thinking, which story of resilience feels like it's deep in my heart? And so for me personally, when I think about resilience, I have had the opportunity to be resilient about resilience, if that makes any sense, quite often. So the story that I share in the book is about being in Africa. And when I first decided to go to Africa, this part isn't in the book, but I remember my friends saying that's so brave. And what they really meant, I could see it in their faces, is that's so crazy. And the story goes on to be about being in Africa, getting evacuated, and then also climbing in a mountain and how that was internally for me. But when I think about what I need, just like I need air, I need the resilience. I need to know that things are going to get better. I need to know there's that hope and that we are all doing that together. Just as a quick story, when COVID was hitting and it was post-COVID, most teams were saying the topic we want you to work with us on is resilience, understandably. For one healthcare organization, we wrote a really big proposal, crossed our fingers that we would get it. And actually, my colleague, Katie, who was our lead facilitator, she wrote the proposal. Then, in a very tragic and devastating accident, mountain biking accident, she died. And it was traumatic, and I was heartbroken, and I loved her. And as life would have it, the day after, we won that contract. So then I had to figure out how to teach what she was going to be teaching. On top of that, then she had about 200 of our clients that she was working intimately with. And I had to go into those rooms and work with those folks about their resilience and them being distraught while I was also trying to experience resilience. So I just share that as a story because we all have that. We have to be resilient about being resilient, and we have small things, we have big things, but we all have our own stories.
That is such a beautiful story that you have so courageously shared with us. I absolutely love your chapter in our book, Triumphs of Transformation, about the process of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and everything that happened, expected and unexpected, and not just the external physical exertion of climbing that peak, but also what changed and transformed within you. And how often I think for all of us, where, you know, so often we think about like resilience being something that, you know, maybe we're practicing ourselves, but not also trying to lead people in a time that is deeply challenging and uncertain for us. And I think what you really highlighted in telling that story about the tragic death of a colleague that you loved is you were in a moment where you were meant to be talking about resilience and leading people, but also in the midst of your own grief and turmoil, and how often it feels like we have a foot in two canoes, leading people on one hand, and on the other hand, attending to our own inner process.
Yes. Well, one thing that you've taught us, right? How I first found you was, I'm going to do it, was with your first book, right?
I remember that book.
You've seen this. And I remember I ordered hundreds of these because I was training people on resilience. And I was like, what's the best resilience book out there? And it was yours. And what I have learned, and you know, is that connection is one of the paths to resilience. And for me, it's probably my top. I know you talk about obviously 5. Connection. So when I was able to serve, and when I am serving, I feel like I'm connecting. It helped me also process, which I wouldn't have ever known. That would have been part of my healing journey to get to share in that way with people and help.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing how meaningful that first book was, The 5 Practices of Highly Resilient People, that was published last year in April of 2023. It spawned this book because so many people came to me and said, I want to share my resilience story. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to coach and mentor all these people. How about we create a compilation book where we all tell our resilience stories together? Julie, something that I deeply admire about you and the work that you do is that you are a true expert in leadership, for people leading people, for people leading themselves inside of organizations. And I'm curious to know from you, what have you noticed, you know, what makes people resilient? Or maybe like, what's a quality that allows people to demonstrate resilience at a high degree?
I love that you asked that. And it's so funny, Taryn, as we're even just talking with each other and with the world, as you use the word expert, I even get that little like, but I don't want anyone to think that means I'm perfect at leadership. Isn't it funny? Our little caveats or qualifiers. And those are the people that I work with. So getting to work with thousands of people, looking back over the last 12 years, it's been like 75,000 people. So I've had the real opportunity to do research, whether it's been in the name of research or not. And when people have humility and humanity, that is the perfect recipe for being able to be resilient, right? Have connection, have vulnerability, all the things that you talk about. But what I've noticed is that there are 4 things that, when put together, make for the perfect storm of needing resilient skills and strategies and effort. And they are when there is a high workload and long hours. That's one thing. But then when it's also coupled with having limited resources, right? That whole like do more with less idea. Then when it's also, there's a culture where there's a lack of recognition and appreciation. And then on top of that, there's a lack of a work-life balance. Those 4 things come together, and it impacts 2 things greatly, which is really about our whole lives. The one is the work culture, the whole unit working together. It's disempowering, it's disengaging. It's when we get the Sunday blues, when we're checking our watch, when we're doing quiet quitting, when we're just disengaged. So it's for the whole beast, right? The community, but it's also for the individual. And I have a really low cringe tolerance, meaning like I have a strong gag reflex to anything that feels cringy. And I know that the topic of resilience can almost sound cringy because it can sound like, just be happy. which we know it's not. It can sound like just pull yourself up from your bootstraps. And it's not that either, but it really is about what can we do with this one life so we are satisfied, we're fulfilled, we're enjoying life, we're making it count. And I think we owe it to ourselves to figure out how to be resilient, especially when we have those four things all put together.
Thank you for sharing that. And, you know, Julie, as we transition to our next panel, I think what you shared that is such an important transition is this idea of not only what resilience is, right? In part, one of those practices is connection, but also what resilience is not. Resilience is not putting a smile on our face. Resilience is not pretending that everything's okay. It's okay to not be okay. Resilience is not just putting our head down and ignoring, you know, our internal process. It's cultivating within us a sense of strength and a sense of fortitude that we will use in these inevitable moments of challenge that we'll continue to face as the fabric of our lives. So, Julie, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been wonderful to have you with us.
It is my pleasure and honor to be part of your community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful woman Julie Lancaster is. I'm so grateful you all got to meet her in the audience. I want to bring up three more of our authors that have just taught me so much about resilience. I have with us Dr. Melissa Sassy, who has an incredible story of having her children in the process of her divorce essentially taken outside of the country without her knowing. And she followed them to Tunisia. If you don't know where Tunisia is, it's a country in Northern Africa. And I really want Melissa to be able to share with us part of that story. Hi, Melissa.
I think I got the memo.
What's that?
I got the memo. We're wearing the same colored shirt, I think.
Oh, I love that. We're wearing the blue. Look at us. Hello. Hello. So, Melissa, one of the things that I was really captivated by when I met you was this incredibly traumatic and sort of tragic thing that happened many years ago with your children being taken outside of the country. And then how you not only followed them, you know, ultimately brought your children back to the US, but you also noticed a need in that country and you were able to do good for people in the midst of your own turmoil and struggle. Can you just sort of highlight that story for us? It is so powerful.
Yeah, sure. I think there was a time where I probably could have not, told this story without, maybe some tears or whatever. And it's still obviously, quite traumatic for me. But I think, purpose of all this is talking about resilience. So here we are. I kind of call it taking my worst nightmare and turning it into my superpower. And what I mean by that is, there are these things that we, can have happen in our lives. Death and divorce and, all of these things that cause us strife. And, who wants to have their children disappear one day and, realize that, you're, quote unquote, victims of parental kidnapping. Scary. One of the most scary things I think any of us could ever possibly imagine. But I kind of took that experience and realized, what is it that, I can do to get them back. And I realized, legally, very, very complicated. Not going to go through that now. We could spend hours talking about that. But, I kind of looked and said, how can I be part of my kids' life? Let them know that I love them, that, yes, I'm their mother and no, I didn't choose this, but how do I, kind of play the long game, if you will, and think about not what happens tomorrow, not what happens next week, but what happens in 10 years. I'm going to skip a lot of stuff, but, I realized, one day my daughter, didn't have access to tech in her classroom. Realized, hey, I can solve that. I work in tech. I've got access to stuff. I learned a whole lot of stuff along the way, ended up creating, sending about, hundreds of laptops, throughout the country. Also learned a lot about that. created a nonprofit. We became the largest youth-led nonprofit in the country. We're nominated for a number of different UN awards focused on digital skills and entrepreneurship in a country that sparked the Arab Spring, that at one point was the largest, kind of number per capita of, individuals, young people joining, challenging groups from abroad, which again, we could talk a lot about that as well. And it was kind of a way of how do we enable young people to take advantage of what's in front of them and show them, what's, the art of the possible, if you will, through tech, through entrepreneurship, not just waiting for a job, but how do they create a job? In some way, it was about deterring youth from violent extremism, but in the biggest way, it was me knowing that there are certain ways that I could get access to my kids. I can make a difference, and I could also get access to my kids, because if I'm there in the country doing good and, working with local communities, it's kind of hard for somebody to say, hey, yeah, no, you can't see your kids today. You kind of have some people to talk to, and you kind of got some places to show up, and you're kind of going to be heard. But yeah, it inspired, kind of where I am with my career now. My young amazing kids. I have 2 of them with me now. Zahra's watching. I think Zahran's not, but that's okay. He'll watch later.
Hi, Zahra.
Yeah. And Yumna, she'll visit us soon, and she may be watching, as well. So I have 1 left and 2 who come back to the country.
Incredible. Thank you, Melissa. Spoiler alert for those of you that have not yet gotten to Melissa's chapter, because our book just released yesterday. Melissa followed her children to Tunisia. She was able to create a nonprofit and get computers, not only in her children's classroom, but in the classrooms of so many children who did not have access to technology in that country. Next up, I'd love to bring, as we keep Melissa on the stage, Dr. Edie Greenblatt. Dr. Edie Greenblatt, she's like the OG resilience expert. I admire her deeply. I learned so much from her. She was talking about resilience years before resilience was in vogue and the buzzword du jour. Dr. Edie, the resilience lady, talk to us about how you came to practice resilience before this was ever a popular topic on the tip of the tongue of so many people. You've been focused on resilience and have expertise in this area for more than 2 decades. Tell us about how you got started and what it is that has kept you focused on this expertise.
Well, Taryn, thank you very much. I'm honored to be here and so proud of you and the rest of the group, and that the book has come out, and it's really good. And by the way, I hate self-help books. I don't read inspirational, motivational stuff, and I can't put the book down. So compliments to everybody. I came to resilience. Well, it depends how you look at it. So if the obvious answer, right? The obvious answer is I was teaching dancing. I was a dance anthropologist, and I was dancing, teaching dancing, running dance events, attending seminars and camps where we would dance and teach 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 hours a day for days on and days off. And I ended up saying, I can't do this anymore. This is impossible. How do you can't keep burning yourself out physically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. So, okay. So then I started talking to a friend of mine who was a dancer, and he actually ended up being the co-founder of Resilience Oasis. I said, I need to do something else. I can't keep doing the dancing thing. Like I'm done. And he said, well, you should get a PhD in organizational behavior. Well, what? He said, you're an ethnographer. Well, yeah, I'm a dance teacher. No, he said, you run restorative events. You do team effectiveness training. I said, no, I'm just earning a living. And anyway, fast forward 2 years later, and I had a full scholarship, the PhD program at Harvard in organizational behavior. And the question was, okay, I realized that when I was running dance events and teaching people to dance, that I thought I was just teaching dancing, but from the the feedback I got from thousands actually that I used to teach a week was like, well, you helped me get through the death of my daughter. Coming here helped me, right? And other people were getting cognitive benefit from it. And I realized that I was creating restorative events. And so I decided to get a PhD and figure out how to make work less damaging, because people used to come to me because work was killing them and they needed to do something fun at night or become a dancer or go dance at UCLA in a program. So that's the obvious answer. The less obvious answer is my mother became very depleted, was disabled quite young. And I spent 20 or 30 years taking care of her. And I had to figure out how to do this. And part of what happened was her injuries and her problems were, she was a concentration camp survivor, and she had all kinds of things. She came as an immigrant. It was tough. That's another story. But in short, somebody's train just went off. In short, I had to, I didn't want to see what happened to her happen to everybody else, right? One bad experience at work when employers didn't understand that they were demanding too much of her and didn't give her any choices, because if she stopped going to school at night, she'd be sent back to a country that was no longer accepting, people who were democratic, people who weren't communists. So anyway, it was because I wanted to fix, I didn't want what happened to my mom to happen to anybody else. So that's sort of the secondary piece of it. So don't pick the story you like.
I mean, I like all the stories. And by the way, we have this crazy train that like runs by our house periodically, but I find that it like underscores the most important points. Like when someone says something and that's like, oh yeah, that's profound. It's like train. So I just see that as really underscoring the importance and power of what you shared. And we're going to bring up Ty Schmidt here. And as we do that, Dr. Edie, you've got this, sort of quote in the background, and it says, relax, we're all crazy. It's not a competition. Why is it so hard for us to restore ourselves? Why is it so hard for us to stop and do the things that we know we probably need to do to rejuvenate ourselves?
So one of the things is that we're using the wrong model to figure out, you can't solve a problem if you don't have the diagnosis and the question right. So the old model is work-life balance, right? Resilience is the nice fancy word for work-life balance because we assume everybody has to work. But the problem is that the old model is work is depleting and non-work is restorative. So the goal then is to work less. The problem with that is we have to eat. The other thing is that, family time isn't always restorative, right? Go to Disneyland at 4:00 in the afternoon one day and see if that's restorative. So the problem is that the definition is wrong. That work and non-work are on one continuum. The reality is that restoration and depletion are on another. So the way we stay resilient is we optimize what restores us and we minimize what depletes us, regardless of what you call it. So we get stuck in my book. This book, Restore Yourself, we talk about exactly how to do the analysis, right? You have to get really good at knowing the behaviors and conditions that restore and deplete you. You have to become an expert at it and know that we're all different. What restores you doesn't restore someone else, and they change over time. It's really important that you understand that what worked during COVID didn't work before COVID and during after COVID. So we have to kind of be really aware that we are changing and that we bring our own identities to what we're doing, and personalized resilience care. So, and if you want to know how things happen to me, there's some interesting stories of my oopsies along the way and how I sort of abandoned understanding that being a dancer was actually the core of what I do, and how to remember the most important thing I learned in school, which was you have to learn to dance in your own body. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, you have strengths that someone else doesn't have, and you have challenges that someone else doesn't have. And if you can get really good at dancing in your own body, it'll be all right. So we're here to help you. And thank you, Dr. Taryn, for helping all of us help more people. Love you.
Oh, thank you so much. Big kiss right back to you. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you both as featured authors and esteemed authors in this book. And I want to also bring on our third panelist for this segment, Ty Schmidt. And, really the three of you named this panel through your chapters. This panel is entitled Taking on the Storms of Life and Learning to Dance Through Difficulty. And so, Edie, you talk in your chapter about taking on the storms about dancing through difficulty, about that thread that you wove. And then also, Melissa, you were able to not only sort of resolve this incredibly traumatic and tragic experience that you had with parental abduction, but to also be able to contribute something incredibly positively to a foreign country that you are in Tunisia. And Ty, in her story, talks about how we show up for the storms of life. Hi, Ty. Thank you for joining us.
I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited that you're here. I'm so excited that you're all here. Like, woo, we're doing this.
Like the energy, y'all. Like we are doing some exciting things. I am so inspired by everybody that's talked. Edie, you said you have to learn to dance in your own body. And oh my goodness, that is a message we all need so desperately. So
yes,
thank you. Thank you, all of you, for being so inspiring. I've been over here just taking all the notes and doing all the things to capture this amazing day. So thank you, everybody.
We're so happy to have you here. And Ty, what's been really fun, and we talked about this, kind of earlier when I was interviewing Princess Stephanie as well, is this idea that this isn't a static story. This isn't a static book. Like, as we all wrote these chapters, we have developed and grown in the writing process. And Ty, I feel like you're someone that I've really had like a front row seat to getting to see your growth, your expansion. And so can you talk to us about your chapter and really how you began to orient around this idea of, how it is that we show up for the storms of life?
Absolutely. So I think the most important thing that really gets to the root of my story is that we all deserve to be here. You deserve to be here. And there are people that battle with that every single day. They battle with just figuring out their worth. And I think it's been really cool to observe a common thread in this summit so far, which is that all the other authors have gotten back up. Like, life knocks us sideways all the time. And the thing that matters most is that you get back up. So for me, the way this comes to life is sometimes I'm perceived as doing too much. And I have to have friends tell me to slow down. But I'll tell you, like, lying in a hospital bed, like I did, convinced that you're going to die, like I thought, changes your brain chemistry in ways that you can't imagine. So whether your bed is a literal bed or a metaphorical one, you have to keep going. And that's why this book is so important right now more than ever, at a time when I think a lot of us really feel alone in our journey and maybe a little polarized and really afraid. We all need to seek the comfort in knowing that none of us are as alone as we think we are.
Yeah, isn't that powerful? It's so easy to believe that we're the only ones facing this challenge, that nobody has ever gone through this before, that certainly if we told people what's going on, they would think differently of us and we might be ashamed. And yet when we have the courage and we draw on our vulnerability and authenticity to share our story, as all of you have, we not only pave the way for others to raise their hand and say, yeah, that's me too, but we recognize that sort of adolescent fable of being alone and the only one is categorically false.
Mm-hmm. And how, my chapter is my way to rise together all of us together in a world that does feel alone. And how do we do that? I mean, Julie talked about how we all need resilience like we need air, and we all have to be resilient about being resilient. And this book is called Triumphs of Transformation. So for me, the key to my transformation of my mind first and then my body was my STORM framework, which I talk about in the book, which involves practicing self-love, strengthening your mindset, leaning into your optimism, learning from your relationships, and checking your mindset. So that's the STORM framework that I share in the book, and it's been really cool to see how working through that framework just on a daily basis in my life has been so impactful for me. And the ability to share that with somebody and thinking about, even if it only helps just one person feel a little bit less alone in the darkness, it is so worth it for me to be able to just be vulnerable, because it is scary. It's scary to get out there and say these things happened to me. I was in a hospital bed thinking I was dying. Like that experience was scary, but sharing about it is even more scary. Honestly, I was breathing you have to breathe like you feel strong in these moments. And for me, I was breathing, I found before I hopped on with you ladies that I was breathing like I do before I get on a roller coaster. I've been doing roller coasters a ton the last year or so, and I hadn't done them ever before that. So I was breathing like my body and my nervousness felt like it did before I get on a roller coaster. And it's almost like I've trained my mind in those moments to say, you know what, instead of being so nervous, I'm going to be excited. I'm going to be like pumped. I'm going to be energized. I'm going to turn that fear into fuel to do my best in this situation. So that's what I'm here to do.
Edie, I want to ask you one more question about this. And admittedly, again, it comes from, you and I having had the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper on your chapter. This idea of like walking through the storm, it isn't just a metaphor. It's certainly not a cliche. This is actually something that came up in your life relatively recently that you just felt like sort of hit you in a really powerful way. Can you talk to us about the sort of emerging theme of what that storm means for you?
So I live in Israel right now. So we've had the opportunity to have trouble in the country. So global storms. I think what we need to keep in mind is that resilience isn't a static state. Someone else said it. Okay, resilience is the ability to keep pulling yourself out of dips, and try to keep the average level of your energies up. That's the goal. Because when you get below, it's what I call it the burnout line, right? We keep going up and down. Good things happen, bad things happen, right? But when we get below the burnout line, right, the normal things that restore you don't work. And the normal things that deplete you are amplified, right? You spill coffee on your shirt and you cry, right? Normally, you would just get over it. So the trick is that you need to try to stay above, right? When there are waves, you need to stay above the water, which means you need to take care of your resilience every day, every hour, make your decisions about what you need. So we're always in a storm. It's just sometimes we're not measuring it. So keep yourself restored as much as possible, right? That's eat right, eat your meals, take your breaks, get your hugs. Don't just put everything off. It's like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. It makes everything harder.
Amazing. I want to close us out by just highlighting, Melissa, your work as a venture partner in Machine Lab Ventures. Mm-hmm. Melissa, you have really taken the expertise that you had in technology, in working with incredible global companies like Microsoft. You were able to leverage that to not only do good in a foreign country in the midst of your own storm, but also now to work with and support and mentor and pour into founders in technology, especially in health tech and fintech. You're working with women. And I think that your focus on the entrepreneurial journey and what it means to amplify people who are in this technology space is really powerful, because I think we all know that entrepreneurship also feels like a constant storm. And I didn't want us to transition without really focusing in on that work that you're doing, today in a contemporary way.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's funny. 2 years ago, I, sat down and I built this, kind of, I don't know, spreadsheet, if you will, of like, what kind of stuff have I done? What have I created, or what have I influenced? And it was, me and a couple colleagues who had worked together for quite some time. And, we put all of the companies that we'd worked with, since the year of the flood, if you will, and all of the different, founders. And what we did is we looked at, companies, countries. We looked at how much they had went on to raise and what those companies are worth now. And we put this thing together and we realized that we had worked with about 250 companies across 80 countries, raising $500 million in investment capital. And those companies are now worth a collective total of $2.7 billion. And I looked at that and I'm like, wait a second, I should be a billionaire. What the heck have I been doing? So going back to the money gal, and I apologize, I forgot her name.
Georgianne McConnell, she's our business money coach.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize. But I started thinking about, wait a second, I'm doing this wrong. Yes, I worked at amazing, companies from Microsoft to IBM, Goldman, BlackRock, but what's my end game, and how do I make sure that I'm not running around in this hamster wheel, and how do I take all these amazing things that I've learned in the past, through innovation scouting and and how do I turn that into my own thing? So I've got a what's next coming soon, so stay tuned for that. But I do venture scouting, and I'm still going to be doing venture scouting, but I got another thing cooking that's very similar. And I look at innovation, and I look at, around the world, what kind of innovation can I bring to banking sector is kind of where I'm focused now. How can I, kind of transition where we are now to the future? And a lot of that has been informed by my, travels around the world, and by my, I think, ability to be very interested in what is that what's next. We'll see if I'm going to. No, I'm not going to say that. When I'm a billionaire, which I will be,
there we go. We spoke it into existence. We spoke it into existence. The power of language.
After I started, I'm like, wait, I got to rephrase that. So yeah, thank you very much for enabling me to be part of this, and kind of enabling me and my family to share kind of our journey from, I don't know, tragedy to triumph, if you will.
I will do that. Melissa, Ty, Edie, what a joy to have you here today. You are powerhouse women. You have learned to dance through the difficulty. You have shown up in the midst of the storm, and you're also helping other people navigating the storms that they are in currently, as well as be prepared for the storms that will ultimately come. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Taryn. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Taryn. You're amazing.
You're amazing. I am delighted to bring up a friend and colleague of mine, David Lowry, Dr. David Lowry, who, of course, is another one of our esteemed contributors to the Triumphs of Transformation book that we are launching today globally into the world. Here's our book. And David, I have just been so inspired by your story, by your humility. And one of the things that's really powerful for me is the way that you not only tell a story about being a leader, being the CEO of the hospital system in your area, and I'm gonna let you talk about your role at UNC Health Caldwell, but also how you became a patient relatively recently. So both sort of the doctor and the patient, if you will. But before we dive into that, David, welcome. It is such a delight and an honor to have you here.
It's great to see you, Taryn, and thank you for having me.
It is great. It is great to be here. you and I met a number of years back, and one of the things that I have been so struck by is how deeply you connect with people, how relationships are so important to you with people, and also the relationship that you have with history. You are always regaling me of like tales and examples of things that have happened in the past, and examples of how we can think about resilience from those stories that you experience. So I'd love for our audience just to get to know a little bit more about you. You are the president and CEO of UNC Health Caldwell.
Right.
And this is a relatively recent role for you this year. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
Sure. Well, I love history. That's a great place to start. And I'm always struck that some of my mentors are in books. I can learn so much from leaders who have struggled through trials in the past, and how to grow from their model. And actually, I'm a veteran. I'm a former Air Force officer, and I think that's where my leadership journey and my resilience journey began. I went through officer training and then served as a physician in the Air Force. And it struck me as I was preparing a talk for a Veterans Day ceremony yesterday, how similar the challenge of being in the military and being a physician, how they overlap in many ways. I mean, they both are very demanding. The stakes are high, life and death decisions. Well, in both situations, people are very dependent on teams, but there's also a great need for resilience, but also a push to be independent, to put off others and not to connect. In the military, we're told to embrace the suck and look within yourself. And in my training as a physician, I was told not to be weak, to not whine if I had to take call at night, to be strong. But no one ever told me in either situation that to be strong, I needed help from other people. I needed to connect with other people. I needed to be vulnerable and share stories. I needed to be empathetic. I mean, think about it. How often do you see a picture of a drill sergeant yelling, "Drop and give me 50"? They never say, "Recruit, let's stop and talk."
That is such a great point. And what a paradigm shift from, your initial training and this, physical and mental toughness that is instilled within you, in the military. I think that also occurs in the business world, and to realize that there's really a paradigm shift. There's an opportunity for us to recognize that true resilience, true sustainability exists not in being Teflon and unimpacted by things, but actually in our own vulnerability and authenticity.
Yes. Remember early in my training, I was an intern and I was on call in the hospital every other night. And after my first week, I returned to our call room and sat on the bunk bed, and I was just distraught. And I thought I couldn't go on. And a fellow intern came into the room. We were both in an Air Force hospital, and he had been out of residency or out of his internship for several years as a flight surgeon. So he was older and more experienced. And I started crying. I was so embarrassed, but I started crying. And he said, when was the last time you slept? I said, I have no idea. When did you eat last? I don't know. He literally tucked me into the bunk bed and said, wait here. He went and got breakfast for me. And then he took my list of work that I was supposed to do for the day, and he did my work in addition to his own while I slept and was able to catch up on sleep. I woke up several hours later feeling much better physically and mentally, also a twinge guilty. And when I talked to him, he said, hey, you would do the same for me. And I credit that guy with my life at the time. I was at my wit's end, and I was afraid and embarrassed to be vulnerable, but that's what I needed.
I love that story so much, both because the story that you shared, and also, David, I think one of the things for me that is so incredibly powerful about the person that you are and the leader that you are is that you not only, talk about the importance of vulnerability, but you also walk the walk. And I think everyone watching this broadcast can see the vulnerability that you bring forward in your leadership and the way that you allow people to feel things exquisitely as their truth, because you show us how to do that.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you. People are just so important. Relationships are so important, and it's the world teaches us to be strong and to be an island and to be alone. But that's paradoxical. That's not what we need. We need each other, and we're stronger when we're together.
I couldn't.
If only we could learn that and do it.
That's right. Well, you're here to teach that. You're teaching that to everyone through your leadership, and you're also teaching that through your chapter in our book, Triumphs of Transformation. And it is such a joy and an honor to have you here today, to have you share your perspective. Thank you so much for making time for us and to be part of this broadcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Taryn. And I think this book is going to be very exciting. I told someone yesterday that I'm so excited to see each chapter, to read each chapter, and the story theme is going to be, how do you respond when things go sideways? Things are always going to go wrong. There are always unexpected turns, but how do you respond? That's always our choice.
I love that. It's there's a quote, maybe it's Walt Whitman who says, it's so much more about, what happens to us in life. Mm-hmm. So what happens to us in life, and it's so much more about how we respond to what's put in our path than actually what those events are. Yes. You are such an incredible living, breathing example. And David, delighted to have you here, delighted to include your chapter in Triumphs of Transformation. Thank you for being the person and the leader that you are.
Well, thank you, Taryn. Thank you.
See you soon. Oh gosh, our time together is going so fast today, and I've got an incredible next panel joining me. This is all about the relationship between resilience, mental health, and well-being. So I'd like to call up Jim Colacerda, Mike Alden, Simone Luthi, and Mark Schneider, who are 4 of our authors in our Triumphs of Transformation book. We're delighted to have you here on our Los Angeles Tribune Global, well, excuse me, I've been talking for too long, on our Global Resilience Summit broadcast and the launch of our book, Triumphs of Transformation. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I'm inspired by everything that's been going on before, so happy to be here.
Mark, thank you so much. Mark, why don't we start with you, because you might have the most interesting title here up on the board. I think anyone tuning in is gonna say, who is this Mark Schneider, shitstorm shaman storyteller? That's some incredible alliteration too, by the way. So talk to us about that title, Mark. And you've got over you, When Shit Hits the Man Club, or perhaps woman, if you'll have me.
Yes, real man is generic and it worked. Interestingly, if my mom were still alive, I'm not sure if I'd have that title, but I do, and she's probably smiling in heaven there. But yeah, I had a wonderful life, a storybook life. And as I'm hearing from others, what I've realized is I didn't take care of my health. It always came second, third, fifth. And so from this storybook career where I went way beyond my expectations, I got sick. And over the course of the last 20 years, I've had 6 shitstorms. The last being long COVID, which is still with me. But from each and every one, I learned a lot. And believe it or not, long COVID and all this saved my life.
All right. Well, you've got to tell us more about that, because I think the vast majority of us think, oh, health, wellness, this is important. And so what you're telling us, Mark, is that actually getting incredibly sick and having long COVID somehow is a paradigm shift, because that actually saved your life.
Now, I wouldn't recommend it, but at the same time, it was a wake-up call. When you go through so many downturns and start losing friends and respect for myself, and question everything suddenly, and you were the help of it. You triggered this. So that's a story for another time. But I'm here because of you, Dr. Taryn. And what I've really learned is my wake-up call and getting my health back and my brain back, and I'm eating better, sleeping better, thinking better, doing better. That changed everything. I'm finally healthy again. And without the health, you have no wealth.
That's incredible. And Mark, something that was really powerful for me that made me feel so incredibly strongly about having you be a part of this book is actually the fact that your story and your experience is meant to inspire other people to remember that their health is incredibly important, and to not sort of mortgage their health for work, for other, sort of demands that are placed upon us. And I think that's a message we all need to hear, and also something that we get to be reminded of. And one of the reasons that I wanted to bring you together at this time, also with your co-author, Simone is also known as the Rocket Shaman, which I know he's going to talk to us about. And Simone, you transitioned from a corporate role and became the Rocket Shaman, in part also because concerns related to your health.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I had to chuckle when you put us on the same panel because, whenever you see shamans, sometimes you get a little bit of a weirded out about, what is this all about? And it's actually a moniker that my brother gave me in the way with ease I move through, challenging times and learn things. So absolutely correct. I've served, 25 years in corporate America, had a great career, ended up in the C-suite in one of the largest banks. But I've had 3 near-death experiences in my life. And then moving to the East Coast in 2020 or 2019, beginning of COVID and the global pandemic, I found myself in a corporate apartment, no friends, really didn't know anyone, and I was diagnosed with cancer. And you get to some point in your life and you go, what is going on? And I have learned through my journey that it isn't really happening to us, it's happening for us. And really the nugget in all this is when you can really see why it's happening for you and guideposts that get you to this point. And in my case, it was really not living a life in congruence with my purpose. And, we've heard from beautiful colleagues and co-authors about the power of manifestations and, how to get about bringing healing into the body and coming back into your life's purpose. And so that's really where the Rocket Shaman came about. I'm an author, speaker, I'm a founder of a tech company now focusing on changing the way we think about healthcare in America. And had you told me 10 years ago I would be, sitting on this panel with amazing human beings trying to inspire America and trying to inspire the world about living a better life, living a better, a better purpose, I would have probably thought, you're crazy. And so here we all are. And thank you for being the spearhead in all this. And thanks for inviting me to be a part of this author community.
Well, I'm delighted, of course, to have all of you here and for all of our authors. And, I think it's a really interesting commentary that you shared, Simone, because I think most of us look at our lives, I know I do, and I think, gosh, I'm so glad that nobody told me what was going to happen next, the good or the bad. If you had told me a year and a half ago that I would have, launched a book and then have another one coming out as a compilation book with a community of simply incredible authors, I too would have said, you're crazy, that's not possible. And, just as Georgianne popped in and said, life is happening for us, I think that's important to underscore this, sort of louder for the people in the back, right? This idea that we can either have that victim mentality, the idea that life is happening to us and we are simply passive recipients of our experiences, or we can, step forward and say, ask ourselves that question, flip the script. Why is this happening for me? What am I meant to learn? What is this lesson that's being presented in our lives?
Yeah, exactly. And maybe I'll just, share one quick thing, because we talk about, positive affirmations. In my chapter, I write about when the cancer came back in 2021, right? So you think about, okay, 3 near-death experiences. Here we have, COVID and cancer, and now it's coming back, right? So for me, it was really about, what am I not doing correctly? And I'm reminded that my mother always would say to all of us children, go get a colonoscopy, colon cancer runs in the family. And I would go through life saying colon or cancer is not in my future. And inadvertently, I think I've manifested this cancer. And from the moment that I switched that and I said, I live a long and healthy life, I am healthy, all of that went away within 30 days, right? So you think about same desired outcome, cancer is not my future, to I live a long and healthy life, I'm healthy. And I believe if I could heal myself, so can everyone else. And so that's really my message in this chapter.
That's so beautiful. This idea that we have the power to heal ourselves. I think we talked about sovereignty a bit earlier on this broadcast, and this idea that, yes, there are incredible resources out there for us to draw upon, many authors in our book that are mentors and have amazing contributions that you're bringing to the world. And at the end of the day, that sense of sovereignty, that what we have and what we need exists within us, and we don't need to look outside of ourselves, is a really powerful message. Mike, I want to come over to you, and then Mark, I've got another question for you coming. So get ready. Mike, you have an incredible story that you've shared on many platforms. You grew up in the projects in the north of Boston, in Section 8 housing, and I think if someone would have looked at your early life and the activities that you were engaged in, they would have said, this guy is probably not going super far in life. And yet, you've got this title that says 3 times Wall Street Journal bestselling author. But I know from your chapter that is not the sum total of your contributions. You have founded a 9-figure supplement business. You taught yourself the business of healthcare, and you're now one of the leading provider of weight loss medication and GLP-1s to people across the United States. How have you found that your mental health and physical health has not only led you on a personal journey, but also manifested in the career that you've chosen?
Well, thanks so much for having me here. First of all, I want to say what an amazing day it's been. What an amazing group of individuals. And also you, Dr. Taryn Marie, nonstop. You haven't really had a break. You're doing an amazing job. So thank you so much for what you're doing. Yeah, growing up the way I did was in fact really, really difficult. In fact, I had an old girlfriend's mother told me I should have been dead by the time I was 17. And I look back at that moment, some of those moments in my life, and I want to thank them for that, because it actually drove me to say, well, you know what, I need to do more. But as it relates to mental health and wellness, right now in my current stage of my life at almost 49 years of age, almost 50, excuse me, I made a decision about 2 years ago. I've always been kind of a big guy. I played college football, and it's just big and strong. But as I got older, my weight increased, and then that had a negative impact on my mental health. And I started to really say to myself, enough is enough. I wasn't sick, thankfully, but mentally I just didn't feel well. And I always have been a proponent of health and wellness, but I needed to really practice what I preach. So I made a decision a couple of years ago to, despite what was going on in my life, despite all the chaos, despite, the business and personal life and all these other things were going on, I was going to make a commitment to my own personal health and wealth. And when I made that decision, everything changed for me. People think that it could be considered a selfish act, but if I'm not healthy, then the people that I need to support, I can't help them I can't help them either. So I decided I needed to be healthy first so that I could ultimately help others.
I love that. A saying that I think has been really important, for me in my life is so often we say, let's take care of other people first. But I think the idea is, and this is really connected to, I think, your perspective, Mark, this idea that, I need to take care of myself first. Let me take care of me so then I can take care of you, not vice versa. Mark, you chronicle in your chapter, I think, if I was going to give out, say, awards, right? For this book, you might get the award for like most individual unique challenges, right? That you were cataloging inside of your chapter that you faced. And something that, I thought about as I was reading your chapters, I'm like, this is a guy that has gotten knocked down so many times and stood up again. And in those moments, and even in the moment that you're in now with long COVID, it can be so difficult to stand up again or just stand up every day and keep going. And so I wanted to know for you, what would you share with your audience about how it is that you're able to keep going, even in some of the most difficult times?
I wish I could really answer that. But I think what it really comes down to is I never really believed in what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but it really does. It makes you wiser, it makes you healthier, it makes you more appreciative of life. And I had a lot of success. I think that helps because I'm really determined to bounce back. Oh, mistake, bounce forward, which is everything. And you can't look back. I'm disabled. It's very, very, very hard for me to admit that and say it. But I went to a long COVID clinic and they said, you have to live it. You can't bounce back. You need to live a new life. And that's really what I'm doing. And, you've discussed it. You brought up the bounce forward thing to me. And it really is true. The ability to say, I'm different than I was. So now I'm going to use my strengths and respect my weaknesses. My whole life being in the flow was everything. And I could do it for hours and hours and hours. Now I can't. And when I push too hard, this thing pushes me in bed for days or weeks. So I've come to grips that we're now friends. Long COVID and I are in one body, one mind, one soul. And I respect what it has done to me. And so there's this mind, body, soul working as one. And when that happens, you can overcome virtually anything if you're looking forward, not back. My analogy is if you're driving a car and you keep looking in the back, in the rearview mirror, something ugly can happen, no different in life.
Thank you for that, Mark. I know this is not original to Jelly Roll, if any of you know him as a singer-songwriter, but he did say in his Grammy Award acceptance speech that the windshield is much larger than the rear view mirror, and we should use them proportionally. Simone, I want to go back to you to bring us home and to wrap us up today. You are on a journey, not only sort of your own blasting off into the world through being able to heal yourself, but also on a journey to really allow people to catalyze their own healing. And I think that is something that so many people struggle with. They want to know, where can I start? And so if you were to give our audience, maybe just a piece of advice that is accessible, what could someone do on a daily basis to enhance their health?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, and coming from someone that also equally to Mark, had its challenges and had to kind of learn to eat healthy and positive mindfulness and all that. I think it comes down to really the one fact that we can heal ourselves. I said this before. I don't believe that, and this is also an encouragement from my friend Mark. I don't think a diagnosis is always the end all of something that is there, right? It's really the belief as to I can heal myself. So what do I need to do? A lot of it has to do with nutrition, right? And I think we have an inequality in terms of access to clean foods in this country. So it is harder, to do that. I get that. But I think as you can make small changes in the way, replace those quick hamburgers with a green smoothie. So I'm that's at least probably one thing of eating healthier. And it really comes down to the mindset. In my private practice, I see quite a few people that want to heal, but have doubts as to what happens. And do I have the power to do this? And my message is absolutely. We are all our creators of our own life and our own health. It's just a matter of saying, yep, I'm going for it. Here's what I'm going to do. And I would say, reach out to any of us, with our stories for if you need some inspiration and what we're doing to heal ourselves and heal the world in the way that we uplift with positivity.
Thank you for sharing that. And, what I'm inspired by that you have each brought to this conversation is the power for us to make a decision, the power of us to catalyze our own healing, the power for us to make sense of our own story, the power for us to shift the script, the power for us to change the circumstances of where we started and to create a completely different life and experience that we didn't necessarily have a template for, but believed was possible. So thank you, Simone, Mark, Mike, for being here. It is a delight and an honor to have you all as co-authors in our book. And what I'm going to go ahead and do now is transition next to a segment with our dear colleagues at the LA Tribune and have them share a little bit more about their work and this incredible book that we have the opportunity to bring to all of you today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Taryn. And it's been so remarkable, Dr. Taryn, hearing the conversations that have been occurring during today's Triumphs of Transformation global broadcast. Resilience is such an important topic, and it means so much to different people. There is something that Dr. Edie mentioned earlier that really resonated with me. She said, what works for someone else may not work for another person. And I think that's what's so impactful about the book, Triumphs of Transformation, how you have done a phenomenal job of bringing together individuals that have had so many different life stories and experiences. And those that will read the book, and we're honored that we had an opportunity to get a first glance peek and read of the book. But there are so many different stories that were shared in the book. And it is an opportunity for people to see themselves and others, but also to recognize too that everyone is on their own path and resilience looks different for every single person. And it's really a matter of just looking inwards to say, what do I need right now? How can I take care of myself? David spoke about it, that taking care of self is so critical. Mark brought it up. Ty brought it up. It's such an important conversation. And I don't recall who said it, but they said resilience is it's one of those terms you hear it and what do you say and how do you react to it? Because it can be kind of difficult to grapple with. But what's so beautiful is that people can learn, people can grow, and people can gain a perspective of how am I choosing to look at my life and my experiences today. And how they choose today may differ than how they choose tomorrow, but it's really taking that moment to take a pause and to reflect. So Dr. Taryn, I mean, you've been on with the authors today doing a marvelous job in facilitating the conversations, but you've also, you are one of the foremost thought leaders on resilience, and you've had an opportunity to work with the authors up until this point where your book has come out this week and has hit the bestseller charts for Barnes and Nobles, is a Los Angeles Tribune critically acclaimed bestseller. What are your thoughts and experiences and feelings like being a part of today's conversations?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Julie Lancaster, who is the founder and leader at Lancaster Leadership, she was so thoughtful to hold up my first book, The 5 Practices of Highly Resilient People. And in that book, I talk about several challenging circumstances in my life. And one of them was founding my company, the Resilient Leadership Institute, just at sort of the edge of COVID starting. And for those of you that haven't read that book, I stepped out of my executive role at Nike, leading executive leadership development and talent strategy. And with colleagues, through a hug and a handshake, I had essentially said, okay, you're going to hire me as a keynote speaker. I'll be an executive coach. I'll do a workshop for you. And so I had replaced my income effectively, stepping out of that role. And what happened, as we all know, in March of 2020, about a month later, is the world changed in really fundamental and unexpected ways. And what that also meant was that business that I had closed with a hug or a handshake all evaporated overnight. And for the first time since I was 14 years old, so really 2 decades, I didn't have an income. I didn't have a way to pay my mortgage, to put food on the table, not to mention my 2 sons, who were 5 and 7 at the time, were sent home for my oversight in homeschooling. And I thought, how am I going to make this all work? And, what is so exciting to me is to sit here with the 2 of you and with our incredible authors today. I never could have dreamed that in those moments of feeling lost and scared and uncertain and like, oh my gosh, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but this might be the biggest one, that we would get to sit here today talking about resilience and to be launching our second book. And I couldn't have dreamed my first book would have become a #1 Wall Street Journal bestseller. And when I saw how that changed my business and my ability to reach people in the world, I wanted to find a way for that to be available to more people, which is why we created Triumphs of Transformation, inspiring stories of resilience and life change, not simply to tell stories that encourage and uplift, but also to give our authors an opportunity to share their stories in a compelling and captivating way on larger stages so that everyone has an opportunity to learn from them. And like you said, Alicia, not every story will connect with people. So getting to have a constellation of people with different experiences means we can all see a piece of ourselves in each story in this book.
That's so powerful, Dr. Taryn. I actually wrote in the comment a while ago that you are such a powerful flashlight, that you shine such a brilliant light on others. I think having seen you since the LA Leadership Week, since I met you, one of your superpowers is shining a light on others. It's just phenomenal how you uplift and elevate others, in this journey of also up-leveling and uplifting the whole world. Like, you really played a game of it requires all of us. And it's not just you, despite being #1 Wall Street Journal, published author, you're bringing others along with you. And so that's one of the things that I celebrate about the triumphs of transformation, is that you brought some powerful, influential leaders around the globe. And it's so inspiring, because how often do we only see the highlights of people's stories, right? How often do we look on their Instagram and think that everything's perfect in their lives? And yet here we are. What a breath of fresh air, because we have some influential leaders in different, like you I can't wait when we reviewed this book, for the critically acclaimed bestseller recognition. We couldn't believe the amount of influential, powerful leaders who are talking about their vulnerable stories. It's such a breath of fresh air. And I'm encouraging everyone to grab this book because, no one is immune to challenges. We all go through it. And it's a matter of whether we talk about it or not. And in this book, 29 influential, inspiring authors have talked about their stories of challenges and the triumphs. And Dr. Taryn, thank you for bringing them together and for putting this book together. What an inspiring masterpiece.
It truly is, Dr. Turin. Thank you for creating the space for the authors coming together, but also for people having conversations around resilience. It can be easy for people to see others as highlights, but to really sit in authenticity and to open up and to be vulnerable. It is difficult, but when we can see that vulnerabilities in others, it encourages us to take a step in that direction as well and express our vulnerabilities, because only in those moments is when we can gain support and gain help. And thinking about Dr. David earlier and how his colleagues showed up and showed out for him and said, please rest. I will handle what it is that you have going on because I can see that you need the rest. I mean, that is empathy, but that is community on one of its finest levels. So we just want to say congratulations again for Triumphs of Transformation, being recognized as a critically acclaimed bestseller by the Los Angeles Tribune. And to all of your authors, for those of you that are tuning in, you can purchase the book at triumphsbook.com. Dr. Turin has the book next to her. This is what it looks like. And we encourage you to check the book out, share it with a colleague, share it with a friend. There are so many insights that can be gleaned from the book. And if you're tuning in right now, we'd love for you to share your comments in the chat. We'd love for you to also share this broadcast with someone that you know, that you believe will be inspired by the words that are being shared by all of the phenomenal authors that have joined in. This is truly a moment for having open conversation. So Dr. Turin, we are going to hand it back off to you to continue the broadcast, but we wanted to come in and also provide an audience with perspectives to hear about your journey as you have put together the book Triumphs of Transformation.
Thank you so much.
I would say at least, Dr. Turin, we're going to give you 50 seconds to get water. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune. Since 1886, our name has been a part of the world of journalism. We've earned a reputation for being a publication that practices integrity, authenticity, and responsibility. For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
Oh, welcome back to all of you. We are delighted to be here with you today as part of our global broadcast with the Los Angeles Tribune and our Resilience Summit, highlighting the launch of the book Triumphs of Transformation, Inspiring Stories of Resilience and Life Change. I want to bring up two of our authors that are near and dear to my heart. We are talking so much about nutrition, functional medicine, a holistic approach to health. And two of our authors that are really leading the charge and have incredible expertise in this area are Dr. Alexandra Gajar. Oh, wait, Dr. Alexandra, I'm not saying your last name right. Okay, you're going to say it when you come on. And then we have Amber Cottle with us as well. Because I was looking at your social media before this and I was like, oh, wait, I'm saying it wrong. All right, so you have to pronounce it for us.
Thank you so much, Taryn. Yes, it's Dr. Alexandra Geyer. It's like higher with a G, Geyer.
I just froze. I think that's what happens when people see the J in my name. Like now I have a lot more empathy for that. I was like, oh no. Dr. Alexandra Geyer, I'm so happy you're here. I've been following your practice. The work that you are doing is first rate, world class, focused on longevity, on weight loss, on holistic medical intervention. I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about that. And also, my dear friend Amber, you are a chef, you are an empowerment coach, and you are allowing people to have the tools to change their lives through the food that you create, and also helping them live lives with greater health through their nutrition. And your chapter, you talk about really for yourself being on that journey and what it meant to you to get out of a cycle of being addicted to food and learn how to nourish your body. So I want to start with you and talk a bit about your chapter, your own personal story, and how that fueled the work that you're doing today.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Taryn. So grateful to be here. Yes, so my journey for almost 3 decades, I was trapped in a cage, and basically I was at war with my body. I was at war with food. And I hit my rock bottom about 13 years ago, and I was on my hands and knees, and I was inflamed. I had brain fog, memory loss, and I knew there had to be another way. I could not live one more moment like that. And so that propelled me and drove me to really not only take my power back from food, as I was struggling with cycles of eating disorder, but also food is medicine. I knew that I could take my power back, but also fuel my body with food. And so I opened up my cafe, the Source Cafe, 12 years ago to help fuel and nourish people's bodies. I do believe that food is the first pillar of health, that where we can start. Food is medicine. And from there, then really another passion of mine is helping women and teens know that it is possible to love our bodies, and they don't have to go through the pain that I went through for almost 35 years, that it is possible to stop the war with our bodies and food, and that we can have food freedom and learn to love life and love food and feel free. So that is, as I was writing this chapter, I was very emotional because I think Simone or Mark or someone said, if 10, 12 years ago, somebody said I'd be on this panel with all these amazing, inspiring other authors, I would be like, oh yeah, you're crazy. There's no way. Because I was still on my hands and knees. I thought I was going to take this to the grave. I didn't think it was going to. So for me, I feel just very honored to be a part of this and to be able to reach as many people as possible, knowing that it is possible to feel free and live the life that you deserve. Yeah.
I love, beautiful, beautiful. I think so many of us have been caught in a cycle with something, whether it's addiction to a substance, to food. I grew up really not having a healthy relationship with food. It wouldn't have been called an eating disorder, but it would have been called disordered eating. Mm-hmm. And, not eating for long periods of time and then eating too much and feeling terrible about myself. I remember trying bulimia in like 7th grade. And I think the only thing that saved me was like, I've always been like a really efficient person. And I'm like, this just takes too much darn time. Like I don't have time to be bulimic. I got to figure something else out. Yeah. What I love about the work that you're doing, Amber, is you're helping people see what's possible and to move beyond that cycle of struggle where we can all feel deeply trapped and like we're just going to be stuck here forever. Like there's no door, there's no way to sort of, find the exit. For you, would you talk to us, Amber, about like maybe a turning point that happened for you that allowed you to just kind of like shift your focus and maybe see, something a little bit differently on your journey that started to move you in a new direction and bring you to where you are today?
Yes. So I played the victim for a long time and always blamed the food. I was like, but finally the turning point for me was, oh, this has nothing to do about the binging. This has nothing to do about the food. When I started to dive deeper into the root cause and know that my binging or whatever behavior, my self-sabotaging behavior that was happening was actually a symptom of something deeper, it really shifted me into starting this deep connection and this trust and acceptance with self. And from there, I could really tune in and start to listen to her for the first time, that I had been ignoring her my whole entire life. And she was hitting me in the head saying, hi, listen, I need you. I've got you. And so when I finally tuned in, I started to listen and I stopped reacting to everything life was throwing at me and started to observe with compassion and grace and respect. That was the turning point for me, for when I really kind of turned the corner and took my power back from food and started to really cultivate body peace, of knowing that as long as I can listen, there with curiosity, there's something deeper that's trying to be revealed. And I do believe that was my turning point for me, to take my power back and see the light. Yeah.
Woo! Taking us to church on a Tuesday. Preach, sister.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, how much have all of us, men and women, silenced that voice of truth, of intuition within ourselves, only to realize what we've done and to tap into the truth of who we are as a means to get back to our path, or to be more fully who we are. That's a beautiful transition over to you, Dr. Geyer, Dr. Alexandra Geyer. I am just delighted to have you here. I see your expertise in so many areas of holistic medicine, well-being, longevity. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your practice and what inspired you to do the work that you do today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so honored to be here, and thank you so much, Taryn, for your kind words. So I have a metabolic health focused practice. I have a practice that is focused on the root cause of health conditions. Medicine lately has focused more on the fire rather than looking for the smoke in a lot of conditions. We treat symptoms, we treat disease once it becomes apparent. And due to my journey, which I can speak on a little bit more, I was really inspired to practice medicine in a way where we really search for the fire, and there is a root cause for most of the things that are bothering us, whether they are truly chronic disease, whether they are a serious illness, or whether it's just a lack of energy, poor sleep. And if we dig a little bit, we can usually see a root in one of four things, which is usually either metabolic health, hormone health, inflammation, or our mindset and nervous system. So the way I practice now is a lot more holistic and really trying to understand how people ended up where they are. And it certainly takes longer than taking a pill, but rebuilding our systems is often such a beautiful journey and restores people to true health.
When you have people coming into your practice, Dr. Geyer, is there something that you sort of see, maybe a lot of people or a majority of people, like a common thread that maybe most people or many people are struggling, that you're identifying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big common thread is that we have lived in a way that put ourselves last. So I work with a lot of high achievers, a lot of people who've built beautiful lives, especially women and men, but women who've had an amazing career, who've raised children, who've created a beautiful home. And now as we enter our mid-40s, 50s, the body starts to tell us that maybe we didn't take care of our bodies as well as we could have. And I think there's this strong intuition in a lot of women and men that maybe someone's told me that I'm fine, that my labs are normal, but something doesn't feel fine. Something feels off balance. I don't feel like my prior self. I don't feel like my usual self. Maybe it's that I can't lose weight. Maybe that I have no energy, but something, a lot of times in highly successful people, there comes a point where there can be a toll on the body. And I think more and more people now, rather than seeking a quick fix, want to understand, want to find balance. I think there's a lot more people who are no longer interested in a Band-Aid solution. They are willing to do the work that doesn't come in a pill.
Yeah, that is really powerful. And of course, as a woman in her mid 40s who's in perimenopause, like I feel like I did a great job of taking care of my body, and the game has totally changed. It's like we were playing Monopoly, and like now it's Chutes and Ladders. Like I don't know the rules. I'm trying to figure it out again.
Right. And we don't talk about it, and I think, and it happens to men too. Men go through a period of andropause where their hormones change as they enter their 50s. But yes, the game changes, and modern medicine has bought us an extra 30, 40 years. We're no longer dying at age 50, but now I think the next frontier is how do we make those last 30, 40 years really great? How do we have the quality of life that we're looking for?
I think that's incredibly important. And Amber, I want to go to you for, maybe our final comment and question here. Not only are you a holistic chef, but you're also an empowerment coach. And so as I hear Dr. Geyer saying, one of the things that she sees people struggling with across the board is putting themselves last. You talked about not listening to that wisdom and that inner intuition. As an empowerment coach, how might you advise people to begin peeling back the layers of making ourselves a priority and listening for the first time or the first time in a long time to that internal voice as a source of guidance?
Yes, so great question. So I believe that any change you want to make starts with mindset. You have to get into the right mindset that I am worthy of this, and I'm not being, especially the women I work with. I also work with a lot of high achiever women. It's like, no, I'm too busy, and I'm a mom, and I'm a this and a CEO, but my first advice would be shift to the mindset that you are worthy. That's the first thing, and then pepper in little parts during the day of self-care. It could be a 20-minute nap. It could be a walk, calling a friend, making tea, but mindset and acceptance, and honestly building these morning routines and night routines around lifestyle practices, even if it's getting morning light and having quiet time and meditation. Start small and start peppering it in. And these will become self boundaries, non-negotiable. And it would be like, these will be incorporated into your daily routine as brushing your teeth. You wouldn't just leave the house, probably not, without brushing your teeth, right? Without your meditation or gratitude or having that cup of lemon water or getting the morning light, and creating that container for yourself will become not addicting, but you'll crave it, and it will become a deep boundary for yourself so you can show up for others and your cup is full. Because I always like to say, and one of my teachers says, slow down to speed up. And I love that. And allowing it and knowing that you're worthy of it. And that builds true empowerment with yourself.
What you shared, Amber and Dr. Alexandra, I think standalone is incredible wisdom for our audience and those tuning in today. And I think you've also really underscored some of the themes that we've talked about today that are related to self-trust, that are related to worthiness. And worthiness catalyzes our wellness, right? We're not going to take care of ourselves if we don't feel worthy enough to invest that time and make ourselves a priority. And so I want to thank you both for the work that you are doing, the way that you are allowing people to feel worthy, to see the value in investing in themselves, and then also providing the guidance and the skills and the tools and the intervention relative to nutrition and holistic medicine that allows people to make real change in their lives.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Taryn.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for being here. And next up, we're going to tune in with two more of our authors from Triumphs of Transformation, inspiring stories of resilience and life change. We have with us Joshua Burke and Dr. Jesse Abshire. Welcome to our global broadcast with the LA Tribune and Resilience Summit.
We made it.
We made it. We're here. Yay. I'm so happy to have you both here. And, we were on an Instagram Live, the three of us, along with Ty Schmidt, not too long ago. And I've just been so grateful. One of the great things about getting to work on this book is I'm not just sort of the person who's putting all of the chapters together, but gosh, do I get to learn so much from each of you as authors, and especially the two of you. And it's just a delight and an honor to have you here, have you both be a part of our broadcast. So Jesse, let's start with you. You started to read your chapter and to talk about some significant shifts that you made in your life, personally and professionally. And like so many of our authors, that has also led you to the work that you're doing today. You want to talk a little bit about your chapter and how that sort of underscores the work that you're doing now as founder and CEO of Abshire Family Financial?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So first, thanks for, bringing us all in on this. And Josh, it's always good to see you, man. Look sharp, by the way. Taryn, I don't know if you noticed, but we had to pull this one out today, specifically for this. So some of you see the credential, right? And then you see financial below it. I like to call it a past life. I went to med school, did all that, training psychiatrists, and just didn't feel as fulfilled as, maybe you would hope to be, and spent more time in a hospital than I saw the sun. So, I kind of identify it as like, it felt like my soul was leaking out of my body and I just needed to find something different. And my undergrad is actually in finance. So kind of leaned back into finance, found that there's like this huge education and literacy gap. And I enjoy being a teacher by nature. So founded Abshire Family Financial. We're now all across the country with 4 major offices, 5 coming January of 25. We're launching Miami, Florida, which we're very excited about. So part of all of that journey and my military experience kind of led into pouring into this chapter. And it was actually kind of like a self-fulfilling journey because I had no idea what I was going to write about until I started writing it. And then it was like, oh, okay, we're going to write about this now. And then it actually helped me kind of organize all these different ideas I had in my head and what things I wanted to talk about. So in doing that, if it's okay, I did actually prepare a little 90-second write-up, if that's okay.
This is something that you wrote, or this is a portion of your chapter?
No, I wrote it for this.
Oh, you wrote something for us.
I like to be prepared.
I love this. I love this.
I don't like
sort of a love letter to our audience?
Maybe.
Okay.
Just a vision statement, maybe.
All right. I love it. I can't wait to hear. Let's go.
I'll be quick. All right. So Let me pull it up so I can kind of remember it. Okay. So resilience is often misunderstood as merely bouncing back from hardship. But true resilience is so much more. It's the capacity to face life trials head on, to find strengths within ourselves and transform our experiences, no matter how challenging interpersonal growth they may be. It's about learning from adversity and, most importantly, allowing it to shape us into stronger, more compassionate human beings. In my work in Triumphs of Transformation, I delve deeply into stories of my personal experience from life, all walks who turned hardship into my foundation of resilience. Each story shows that resilience isn't about avoiding difficulties, it's about embracing them as the opportunity to grow, change, and find unique purpose. So as I embrace resilience every day as a business owner and serving the clients of the firm and, my children and family, so I acknowledge and try to acknowledge, especially with people that I care about and that are close to me, that falling down is simply part of this journey. But standing back up, that's where the real transformation happens. My hope through this work and this book is to inspire each of us to tap into that inner strength, to view our challenges not as roadblocks, but as stepping stones to becoming wiser and more capable versions of ourselves. Remember, resilience is not a destination, it's a journey, and it's one we're all capable of making.
Woo! I love that. Let's go.
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
Oh
my goodness.
Woo!
Yeah.
Really well said.
It just, I wanted to, I didn't know exactly if you were doing a Q&A, but I was like, I just want to kind of deliver a personal message from me and how I would want, like, my hope of putting this thing out into the world. And I'm sure that, like, all of us share this. I just wanted to put it in words.
I love that. It's incredible. And, I think one of the things we haven't talked about yet today, it's probably hard to find a topic that we haven't touched on yet, but one of the things we haven't really touched on yet today is really how this book and our collective stories are also shaping and changing our understanding of resilience. And what I love about what you wrote, Jesse, is that you really were able to share with our audience some of the ways that we now see resilience and understand resilience in a profoundly different way than we might have traditionally thought about this.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that as we grow, not only as a species, but as individuals, that we learn a lot of very specific skills. And sometimes those skills, we get to put different words to them. And that allows us to have more power over them, also kind of guide them and manipulate them to kind of benefit ourselves and maybe benefit others. And, like I said on the live, even though, I'm not practicing medicine anymore, I always have like this statement that sticks in my head. So like my attending, he said, surgeons use scalpels as their tool to help people. And psychiatrists, our words are our scalpels.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the reasons that I wanted to bring the two of you together in particular for this conversation is because I felt like there was so much synergy between your chapters and what you're sharing inside of the book, Triumphs of Transformation. So Jesse, you talk about betting on yourself, how adversity shaped your path. And then Joshua, I feel like you really kind of pick that up because you're also talking about how we forge strength through crisis and change. And I wonder if you would talk a little bit about, what have you learned about being able to forge strength and maybe some other, character or leadership assets in perhaps what might feel like some of our darkest times?
Thank you so very much for the question. And let me also just say thank you for organizing this event today, and thank you to the Los Angeles Tribune for putting this event on. It's really an honor to be here and to be with Jesse. And I'll also just say thank you, Jesse, for your service, not only in writing this chapter, but also as a veteran. We launched our book yesterday, which was Veterans Day, and shout out to you. And we have one additional veteran that's on the team as well. In honor of all of the veterans that are in my life, or many that are in my life, I gave away 11 copies of this book and our book to veterans, and I'm thrilled about that opportunity and the fact that we launched this on Veterans Day. So I'll start with that and say thank you again for all of this opportunity. So one doesn't lift weights that are light to get stronger. And just as one cannot have the expectation to lift the same weight to get stronger, one cannot have the same expectation to endure heavy things until one will develop strength by carrying and lifting only heavier things. So my daughters right now are 9 and 13, and they're playing video games. Taryn, I believe you have sons about the same age, and they may play video games. The games get kind of dull really quickly unless they get harder as you go along. The challenges that you face in business and life will get a little bit dull unless things get a little bit harder, and they always do get harder, right? There is something about what we've signed up for to be human that life gets more challenging. And just when you think that, whew, I'm ready to take a break, it turns out that there's another mountain that you haven't seen yet that's lying in front of you that you have to climb. So at some point, and for most of us at multiple points throughout our lives, we're going to have to climb that second, third, fourth mountain. And that's going to create and necessitate inner strength. And much of that strength is not strength that we know that we even have until we start climbing. So in my book, I use a couple of quotes from Rumi. I lived in Turkey. It's a painting of Turkey behind me in Istanbul. My youngest daughter was born there. So I'll share a quote from him that is also, I think, reflective of this. So if you envision that picture of the mountain that we talked about, that second, third, fourth mountain, that whatever the journey is, that you don't necessarily know how to get to that mountain. And the quote is this, that when you start out on the way appears. So it requires an act of courage to take that step to launching that business, to becoming the best version of you, to losing weight, to getting your PhD or your MD or finishing your GED. Regardless of what it is for you, it takes courage to start. And sometimes you just have to trust that the way will know the way. So
I love it when Josh talks.
I do too.
You never know where you're going to end up, and he takes you right there with him,
I agree. Josh, you shared something that was really striking for me in our conversations. I think so often it's easy to feel like that moment of challenge or change or complexity, especially if it's unexpected, especially if we perceive it to be negative. I love that little weightlifter, by the way, that Georgianne just commented on. That was great. It's so easy to feel like that's going to end us, that is going to be the end of our story. And in fact, you talked about having a really contrasting experience and perspective. And I wonder if you'd share that with us, the idea that perhaps challenge and that experience is not the end, but something else.
It certainly is. And thank you for that prompt. And so when we are in our darkest times, what feels like our darkest times, as long as we can find that inner strength to continue, find the courage to make that step out of those dark times. What will inevitably, as long as you keep persisting, what will inevitably happen as you look through the rearview mirror later in life, you will realize that that dark time, that low, was actually just the beginning of the next stage of who I am as a human. And that is so important for us all to realize that what we think is the end really is just the beginning.
I think that's so important to remember, because so often it does feel like the end. It feels like we're finished. It feels like our life as we know it is over, that what we had expected and thought to be true or could count on is, a rug that's, now been pulled out, from under our feet. And to remember that even in those dark moments, that is in fact not the end. It might be a dismantling of what we have known. It might be a shift in our reality. But I think so often I find what you've shared with us today, Joshua, to be true, which is that looking back, typically not in the moment, but hindsight being 2020, that in fact those challenges that did feel like they would end me or end the life that I thought I had become in fact a new beginning. So thank you for sharing that wisdom with us. Mm-hmm. And thank you both for being here and being a part of this important global broadcast, for sharing your stories, for sharing your experience, and Jesse, for writing that beautiful piece for us today.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did very much, very much. Joshua and Jesse, it's been such a pleasure to have you both as part of this book. Joshua, you have the book in the background. Your chapters in the book, Triumphs of Transformation, are truly transformative, and it is a delight and an honor to publish this book with you as our co-authors. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Taryn. Thank you, Jesse, as well. I'm the only one without a doctorate degree on the screen, so I'm going to go study and try to keep up with you both.
Okay.
As we know, you don't need a degree to have wisdom, and you certainly both have shared with us tremendous knowledge and wisdom today. So thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
See you all.
We now have our final guests, our final authors joining us today as part of our global broadcast with the LA Tribune, our Resilience Summit, and the global launch of our book, Triumphs of Transformation, Inspiring Stories of Resilience and Life Change. Please join me in welcoming our final guests, Ali Katz and Adley Kinsman. Hello, Ali Katz.
Hi, Taryn. Great to see you.
Hello, Adley.
Hello. Hello, friends. So happy to be here.
It's so great to see you both. The title of our panel is Building Big Businesses Built on Resilience. And this is so exciting to have you both here because you have both built big businesses, big companies. You've got big impact in the world. And through the work that you're doing, whether you're expressly saying resilience or not, you are really creating a better planet for all of us. You're offering tools and resources that teach us, that up-level the people that are learning from you, that are part of your broader communities. And so I'm so excited to not only have you here, but actually have the two of you closing out our broadcast today as the grand finale. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to start with you, Ali. You're the founder of Eyes Wide Open Collective. Tell us more about what that is and what you're contributing in the world.
Sure. Eyes Wide Open Collective is a collective of companies that are transforming the legal, financial, and political systems that we've all inherited. And I think now more than ever, we need really resilient legal, financial, and political systems, and we need to understand our roles in them. And that's really what Eyes Wide Open Collective is about. It's about learning to recognize where we are creators of the economy by the choices that we make, the advisors that we work with, and how we understand the systems that apply to us legally, financially, politically, and then can make eyes wide open choices that understand what we've inherited and allow us to create a new future reality.
I love that. Amazing. I know, don't you just like, so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it's so needed. And how long have you guys been around, Allie?
Well, I've been in business for about 20 years myself, and the Eyes Wide Open Collective really has been coming together, I would say, over the past 10 years when I realized that these legal, financial, and political systems were really broken. And so I've been creating new systems and really recognizing myself as a systems change architect. And I'm so excited, actually, Adley, to be here with you today because I am a purchaser of your programs I've used myself to say, okay, how am I going to get this work out into the world? Because systems change is great, but it's not necessarily the sexiest thing. And purchasing your programs has taught me how to make my work more sexy so that more people are into the systems change that I know that we all need to do. So thank you so much for your work with Viralish.
For anybody who doesn't know what I do now, I'm a little afraid. We don't do sexy work, for the record.
Adley makes everything sexy.
It's true. It's really true. Or at least funny. If not sexy, at least really funny.
That adjective is used a little bit more often.
Yeah.
Sexy, but no, it's such a pleasure to be here and to learn from you as well. Both of you. I've learned so much.
One of the things that the two of you have in common and why I thought this would be a great conversation for us to have today is you both are incredibly courageous. And I see that courage in the sense that you're both creators and you're creators in sort of with a broader vision and mission to change an existing paradigm, right? So Allie, you already talked about being a creator of a new economy, to look at a legal and financial system where attorneys are incentivized to have people argue, to create more documents, right? Because it's more billable hours. And you're on a crusade, really, to shift that paradigm and to courageously speak out against something that has been widely accepted in the world. And Adley, the way that I see this for you is, we have ideas of like, what types of videos do people want to see? What is the content that people want to consume? And largely, this has also been, in many ways, a sort of male-dominated, creator space. And so you're stepping forward in terms of changing this paradigm of what it means to create, sort of the visual architecture to allow people to have their message viewed, to have it be visible to a greater degree, to allow it to go, I don't know, viralish, if you will.
Well done. Well done. I mean, that's really where my passion comes from, is attention is another form of currency and a really, really powerful one. And how do we take messages that may be unsexy or unfun to talk about and story tell them in a way that helps me understand and appreciate something that I would never have logged on to Instagram or TikTok thinking I want to learn, but it was so compellingly served up to me that I now am so glad that I stumbled upon this. So then when we help brands and events and people of interest repackage and story tell themselves in a different way that's more palatable, maybe for social media, because let's be honest, nobody logs on to social media thinking, I'm going to go better myself, or I'm going to go educate myself, right? Maybe you try to curate your feed to do as much, but really it's more of a habit, or you're standing in line at the bank, or you're getting ready for bed, and that's when you're consuming, and it's not usually with so much intention. So how can we show up intentionally to capture and position ourselves well in the greatest wave of free advertising that the world has ever seen. Like, we are in the middle of it. And so how beneficial would it be for you, Allie, Taryn, me, myself, anybody watching this, to get 1 million free eyeballs on you, your mission, your message, your product, your service? Hell, not even 1 million, 30,000 eyeballs, 30,000 people around the world just today to know that you're trying to buy RV parks, or you're trying to change this currency system. Like, whatever your service is, organic social media is the most important tool I think every business or personal brand should be able to be mastering today, because everybody's putting out content, or at least know they should be. And if we can teach you how to take the same 15 minutes and be 5 to 10 times more effective with the 15 minutes that you're going to take to make this video anyways, that's my goal, is how to help people maximize the opportunity of the age that we're in, so they can storytell their mission and service to the world in a stickier way, to where people are actually going to hear and become more discoverable.
That is so incredibly meaningful. And I think that is what so many of us want, is, to not only do something that's, valuable, in the world, but also to find a way to share more broadly the work that we're doing so people can become aware of it. And, the last kind of topic that I'd love to touch on with the two of you is something else that the two of you have in common and you share in each of your chapters. And that is that the work that you're doing today wasn't this sort of seamless process, right? Of having an idea of how you're going to contribute to the world and just following that path. But in fact, came after each of you had your lives sort of dismantled in different ways that, sort of took things down to the studs and then allowed you to rebuild. And so as we kind of come to the close of our broadcast here, I wonder if each of you might talk about that process that you went through of sort of dismantling, and how that has now brought you to, the person and the work that you do today. And maybe I could hand that to you first, Allie.
Sure. So I think that the big awareness, the big aha that I had after my first rise and then the dismantling was that I had something I think many people have, which is money dysmorphia. So money dysmorphia is this distorted view that we have around money, which is an infinitely renewable resource when we know how to use our time, energy, and attention. And yet most of us are sacrificing our non-renewable resources, our time, energy, and attention. As Adley said, attention is the currency. It is the primary currency. It is actually our most valuable resource. And yet we're sacrificing it along with our time and energy in service to money. Money is infinitely renewable when we know how to use our time, energy, and attention wisely. But I didn't know that until I dismantled everything I had created after building $2 million businesses and recognizing, wait a minute, my life is actually in service to money and it's not being used in the way that I want. What's going on here? What's underneath this? And I discovered this concept of money dysmorphia. And what I realized is that our financial services systems and our legal systems are really designed in such a way to get us to give our attention in service to money. But we can take that back when we really understand this concept that I created called financial liberation, which is how to liberate ourselves from the idea that we'll only be free when we have enough money in the bank where our money is earning money on our money, and instead recognize that by becoming creators, we can contribute through the rest of our lives. We don't have to have some magical amount of money in the bank in order to be free. You can be living a liberated life right now, but you do have to come into right relationship with time, energy, attention, and money. Break free of this idea, this money dysmorphia, and take back what is really most important by aligning what matters most to you, your time, energy, attention, and money, in a new financial model, a new financial planning model, so that you're not just making decisions based on what's going to get your financial advisor rich, or maybe even what's going to get your lawyer rich, but really what is going to give you a life that is worth living.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I love that that insight came out of a moment when, you know, you felt that things were being, or saw that things were being dismantled in your life. And that's actually what brought you to that piece of wisdom and that aha moment. I know we're gonna wrap up here. And so Adley, I wanted to just transition to you and give you an opportunity to talk briefly about sort of that dismantling moment and how that's brought you to where you are today.
I'll be very quick because I know we're out of time. I've been over here trying to figure out which dismantling moment I should I should talk about, because
there are so many for all of us.
So many of them. And all of them have been the greatest gifts of my life. And like every time I thought, oh man, this could break me. Oh, this is the dismantling of something I really thought was the thing and the dream. Now, in retrospect, can look back and be like, hot damn, that was the greatest gift I was been given. Thank goodness my plans didn't work out. Right. And I think now that I have that knowledge and have seen that pattern prove to be true so many times, then I'm prepared for the next really tough thing that comes my way, to have the foresight to be like, this is going to be a gift. So the next time, I know I'm not going to move out of this valley that I'm in until I pick up the tools that I'm supposed to learn from this next dismantling, or this next, even just pure disappointment, right? So if you're watching and you're in a valley right now, you're not going to move through it until you become a new person, until you acquire new skills, because the same tools that got you to the top of this mountain, or even just got you this far, are not the same set of tools that are going to help you get to across the next mountain and up the next mountain. So we have to become different people along the way. And that is the gift and the journey. Probably my biggest dismantling, which seems so silly, but I was young. I was 22, 23, and I was on a reality show. I was on NBC's The Voice. Don't go look it up. It's mortifying. I was a dare, but I ended up on the show for my sorority sisters. But I moved to Nashville. I had signed this record deal. I'm putting that in quotes for a reason. But I thought my life was going to be on this trajectory. It was on the #1 show in America. I was getting recognized everywhere I went. I signed this deal, and it was out of left field, right? And then my dad is dying of alcoholism. I'm in a terrible personal relationship at the time. And I am filing for bankruptcy because that record deal was not a real record deal. In fact, I had signed away rights to my name, Adley, for life commercially. I couldn't use my name for almost 18 months. I had to work under a fake name, removing all the leverage that I had from that show. Couldn't put gas in my car. And I'm living in some guy's basement. It was just a terrible time when I had thought, and my hope was that I'm going to be at the top of this mountain where all my friends are now. Now I'm at the bottom. And I was praying at the gym, and I was like, God, I thought, this was meant for me. And I wanted to previously go work in a nonprofit. I wanted to speak and encourage and inspire people. Now here I am, about to be on this, I was on this reality show and have all this amazing stuff, but it was stripped from me. And I felt God speak, as if you've ever had it happen, it's undeniable. But I heard it as true as I can know anything to be true. And he said, called me Ad. And he said, Ad, I just gave you a stage and a microphone and a voice you didn't know you had. What do you think you're supposed to do with it? Go speak, go encourage, go inspire people. I'm just giving you a way bigger platform than you were going to give yourself in this cubicle working for a nonprofit. And so that has been my North Star. And that has led me into not being beholden to the music industry, waiting for permission from a suit behind a desk to tell me that I can entertain people. But in fact, going direct to consumer and saying, I am good enough on my own to make content and to put myself out there and to do it. And now here we are, 1 billion organic views a month created and distributed through Viralist and working for some of the biggest brands in the world. Has been the greatest gift of my life. And I hate that my back had to be against a wall to believe in myself enough to do it.
But that's how it is, right?
It is how it is. Yes.
Right? If I look at my similar story, it was through bankruptcy. It was through after having built these $2 million businesses, and then recognizing actually through a plant medicine journey that I was creating all of the suffering in the world that I wanted to transform. And yet I was creating it in my own life because of what I inherited, because of the things I learned, and that the only way I was going to be able to make it through, also through prayer and hearing a very clear message that I needed to walk away from all of it, move to a farm, and file bankruptcy. And knowing that it was from that rock bottom place that I was going to be able to create new foundations and new systems that would actually inspire myself, because I wasn't inspiring myself. I'd followed all the rules, and yet it didn't feel as if I was making the kind of impact in the world that I wanted to make. And so for any of you that are in that moment of your own rock bottom, recognize that this is the foundation from which you get to build. And what I heard Ad say, and what I did for myself as well, and you can read about it in the book, is pray. Finding that show me the way, show me the way, show me the way. What is it that I need to see that I am not able to see from this place I'm in right now? And then listening and really learning to listen to life, because you will be given the answers and it will transform your life into something that you couldn't even have imagined was possible.
Let's go, Allie. That's the right energy. Perfect energy to close this out.
How about that for just launching this book into the world together? What a beautiful way, both of you, Adley and Allie, to close out our broadcast today. You two are absolutely brilliant, inspiring. I am in admiration and awe of you both, and just delighted to have you as co-authors on our book. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this broadcast. And for all of you tuning in today, Adley and Allie's stories, as with our other co-authors, are in the book and have already uplifted me and given me so much wisdom and guidance. I know they will for you too. Thank you, everyone who joined us today, and the LA Tribune for supporting this Global Resilience Broadcast Summit, for allowing us to have a larger platform to talk about the Triumphs of Transformation book, where we share inspiring stories of resilience and life change. It is a delight and an honor to be here with all of you. Thank you, Ava. Thank you, Alicia. And we look forward to getting to be of service and to getting to amplify all of the voices inside of this book.
Well, Dr. Taryn, you have been of service and of greater service and of greater service. It looks like you've always been looking for a way to serve in a greater way. I thank you, your team, Mike Alden, Garrett, all of the 28 co-authors. You have done such a phenomenal job in putting this masterpiece together. And I know that this coming Friday, we are all going to be in New York with with an in-person book signing and party celebration, and we'll be at the New York Times billboard for the Los Angeles Tribune bestseller, critically acclaimed bestseller. So we look forward to seeing all of you. And Dr. Taryn, congratulations. Congratulations to all the 29 co-authors. On behalf of our CEO, Mo Rock, the whole team of the Los Angeles Tribune, our acclaimed critics board, we are so proud. We are so proud to have chosen and elected and voted the Triumphs of Transformation as a critically acclaimed best-selling book. So to all of you, much love, Dr. Taryn. In closing, we are going to close this program with the message from our CEO, Mo Rock, on his TEDx talk about the role of the Los Angeles Tribune in media. Dr. Taryn, thank you.
Imagine waking up in the morning, grabbing your morning coffee, and opening up your daily newspaper to nothing but headlines that inspire and uplift you. Headlines like the Apollo 11 moon landing and how it inspired people in the 60s, or headlines like the Berlin Wall has collapsed, or even more recently, headlines like the miracle on the Hudson. What would that do to your day when you started off with just positive news? My name is Mo Rock. I'm the CEO of a national newspaper brand, and today, together, we are reimagining journalism. You see, studies reveal that there is a stark contrast between positive news and negative news. In fact, for every piece of news that is solutions-based, that can uplift and inspire you, there are at least 17 that don't. That's 17-1. So today, we are actually faced with an epidemic of negative news. We've all heard the phrase, if it bleeds, it leads. But why does this have to be the centerpiece of a lot of news production, journalism, and content creation of the world today? There are a lot of incredible journalists that are solutions orientated, and I give a lot of credit to them for doing a great job. And here's the truth that you may not realize, is that everyone in this room is impacting our news. You see, every single time you like a post, every single time you leave a comment on a news article, and every single time you share something, you're not just liking, commenting, and resharing. You're actually casting a vote. You're not only casting a vote for the kind of news you want to consume, but believe it or not, you're casting a vote for the kind of world you want to live in. You see, I believe that news has the power to not just inform you, but it has the power to mold you. Our world views are largely shaped based on the news and content that we consume. And so I want to encourage folks to remember that the next time that they like, comment, and share. Our organization has one question that it always has to ask before we share anything, print anything, or publish anything. Our editorial team asks this one very simple question. Does the following piece of news empower our audience, or does it disempower our audience? What would the world look like if every content creator, every journalist, every time someone posted a news article, they asked that question? Does the following piece of content empower our audience or disempower our audience? And I want to encourage everyone to participate in this process and help us bridge that gap between 17 negative news articles for every one positive. And let's come together and ultimately make this world a better place. Thank you.